All right, we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here, and thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams here, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering. Then anyone knows a super chat or a super thanks. So as anyone who's a member there with the green username, so always get that priority answering. If you'd like that as well, there's a link in the description here. And happy to see that Kevin, Vishal, Lanswath, Chad, and B. Mitchell, and Danny, and let me see, Mr. 705, and Tony, and you see, I don't want to miss any of the other early people, Brian and Kyle and Taste Bud and Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by, everyone. I really appreciate it. Happy to see all the great conversation here already before we even get started. So I see Vishal says, my spots are a Lotus Emira, a 2000s yellow T-Bird, an Aston Martin DBX in British Racing Green, and a Hummer H3. Very nice. And Lancelot says his spots are a silver Toyota Celica GT and a white PT Cruiser. That's awesome. I saw a PT Cruiser today too, and it was funny because it was like two grandmas driving it, but they were driving the GT, like the turbo version. I'm like, who upsold them on the turbo? Those poor grannies. They don't need it. But anyway, it was like they were like actually elderly driving around in a turbo PT Cruiser. But that was interesting. My spots actually, so I saw a early 2000s Thunderbird as well. It was interesting. It was a silver one with a blue interior, which there can't be more than a handful of those in that combo. So that was cool. Saw a Ferrari F8 Spider the other day. That was the most exciting one for me. And then we talked about the old F-150 Lightnings, and I saw one of those old ones just today in silver, and that was like, wow, because again, I had said I had not seen one of those in years. So that was notable. And then I also saw Chrysler Crossfire here today, so that was another fun spot. It was actually one of those in really nice shape too, it seemed. So that was cool. But let me see here. B. Mitchell says he's cheating again since my only real spot today was putting sound/heat insulation in the roof of my 47 International pickup before putting in a new headliner. Well, that's fun. Fun to have a project there, and hope it's going well. And B. Mitchell, you might actually appreciate. We went to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum today, and they have all kinds of cool trolleys and other related equipment and stuff, and it was kind of fun. We rode in one that was built in 1949, one of the Philadelphia ones actually, and also like one that was like from the early, like I think 1910s or so. It was like an open air one. Very fun. I'm a little bit nerdy when it comes to the trolleys and that kind of stuff, but I know B. Mitchell appreciates some of the stuff from the 40s and 50s as well, so that's why I wanted to share briefly. But anyway, Danny says hello, and his spot since Wednesday is a 2006 Subaru Outback 2.5 XT Limited and 2007 Outback Sedan 3.0R LL Bean Edition. I'm so surprised they haven't brought that back, the LL Bean Editions. You would think, I mean, maybe they still want to pay the licensing anymore, but it's kind of surprising with so many collabs and crossovers that we don't have as many as I think we had in the 2000s. And even in the 2010s, I feel like there was more, but especially 2000s and 90s, Eddie Bauer editions and all this other stuff. Like, it's kind of weird that we're not getting more of those, because you would think LL Bean and Subaru would be a match made in heaven still. But those are cool spots to find those. And he said he had a lot of fun at his senior prom Thursday night. That's awesome. Well, glad you had a great time. He says that another note is Stormy is 72 miles away from rolling 80,000. Awesome. And Chad says, I wanted some Publix chicken for the family. I got caught in a horrific thunderstorm, a wall of water with 50-mile-per-hour winds and street flooding, even though it's a hurricane evacuation route. That's crazy. I'm glad I was in the Maverick with 6 inches of running water. It did very well, and I got a free shower. Man, that's crazy. Well, glad you're all right. Hopefully everyone around you is doing okay too. You don't have too many flash floods or anything like that happening, but man, that's wild. Glad you're safe. And Danny says, they got smashed into by an inattentive dad with his kid around your daughter's age heading home from prom. Stormy plus me gave him a fat lay on the horn. Nice. Wow. Yeah. Well, it's surprising someone would be out driving around with their kid if it was late at night, assuming you're heading home from prom later. That's usually, I mean, everyone does things differently, but usually we're not out till 11 o'clock with our 5-year-old, but maybe other people are. I don't know. But that's wild. And let me see. Lancelot, that's a good point. Says that the free showers are the best kind. I agree. And Danny says they're in a pre-facelift Explorer ST. He was merging onto the highway. Highway was down to one lane due to construction. Everyone merging was zipper merging. And but he decided not to and forces his way between Stormy and the facelift Explorer in front of me. And he also gunned his engine in order to do that, by the way, because I saw him in my right side mirror. And in it, I saw his front end lunge forward, telltale sign he floored the gas. Yeah, sounds like he was fighting his way in there. That's interesting. And let me see. And Chad says, with Tesla historically having build quality issues, how do they have good crash test ratings? That's a very good question. So, you would think that those two things are kind of related, but they're really not, primarily because any of the, plastic, the superficial stuff that you see doesn't really affect crash performance. It's all the solid structure underneath, the stuff that you can see. That's the stuff that disperses the energy. And that's the stuff that, is the make or break between, a safe car and a not safe car. So, you can have your little vanity bumpers and, grills and things that don't matter. You can have that stuff literally falling off, and it doesn't matter as long as you have your bumper beam and you have all of the key structural stuff in place. I mean, there might be a very, like, if we're going to that extreme, like, maybe not having a little bit of that extra cushion between, the bumper beam and the, fascia. Maybe, you're slightly hurting, the slowing down of G or whatever for that micro millisecond. But, like, in all reality, it's like, it's the actual structure is what's important. And to Tesla's credit, they do have very safe structures. Doesn't save them all the time. There's still plenty of people that, end up badly screwed up in Teslas, and they have other, issues that cause some of that stuff too. But, like, the structure is very good. And also, I think I haven't seen any, like, recent complaints or studies. I think Tesla build quality is a lot better than it used to be. I remember, in like the Model 3 in the early years, it was really terrible. And there was just, it was just a mess. I think that, the Refresh 3 and Y are a lot better with that. I actually have a buddy that has a Model Y, the refreshed version, and he's had zero build quality issues. He's been very happy with it, and he's really been enjoying it. So, I mean, that's completely anecdotal. One person has a well put together Model Y. I have no idea if that's representative of the greater whole or not. But I think they have gotten better. So, if you're getting an old Tesla, talking 5+ years old, there's a chance that maybe that's still a problem. But I feel like the newer ones are actually pretty good. But I could be completely wrong on that. So it's just the read that I've gotten recently. That's a great question, though, about build quality and all that compared to crash testing. Yeah. And Danny says, sorry, that was the rest of the story there. And last one says, anyone know what the Montana State Flower unofficial is? The traffic count. I'm surprised that Montana has claimed that, because I feel like PA could also claim that. We have just eternal construction. It's just, it never ends perpetually. It's just, there's always somewhere where there's construction around here. And there was a joke, actually. I just saw a meme someone posted up the other day that was just like a pristinely paved side street here in the Pittsburgh area. And they were like, this is a very disturbing image. There is not a single cone anywhere. There's not a single pothole. And, like, all the comments, like, everyone knew the assignment. They're like, don't worry, we'll be in there, on Monday to jackhammer something needlessly, and screw up the road, or, dump a bunch of salt to, just screw it up or whatever. And yeah, the roads around here, it's just horrendous. I mean, it's not terrible, but, I've driven, large majority of the country, at least as far as, the more populated areas of those, every state. I feel like PA is still up there is not maybe the worst. I'm trying to rack my brain of what was the absolute worst. But it's definitely not one of the best, that's for sure. And I'm glad Montana though struggles. Well, I guess I'm not glad, but I'm glad we're not alone, I suppose. I feel like Montana though, you guys probably don't use salt during the snowy months, right? So maybe that helps preserve yours a little bit. Maybe they have a construction racket up there with something else that's not pothole related. Because it seems like all that road crew stuff is just a racket, in my opinion, because again, it's just like designed to fail and keep them in a cycle there. But yeah, I'm not going to speculate about that, but but that's funny. I like the joke, Lance Swath. And Tony says, "Hey everyone, saw one of my dream cars today, an H1 Hummer, and on the Taconic State Parkway of all places. It barely fits in its lane. After that, I saw a yellow E36 M3, another poster car for me. That's awesome. Yeah, sounds like you had a really, really good day there with spots. I saw a Hummer H1 like a week or two ago, and it was the first one that I had actually seen in a long time. And it was, what was I in? I was in something that was kind of funny, but I can't remember what. It was like kind of an interesting contrast between them and me. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, it was wild though, because this one was red and it had like this crazy roof rack on it, and it had like mods done to it and stuff. It was pretty wild. But why? I'm trying to think of why it was funny. I can't remember what I was in that would be. I don't know. Anyway, I'll think of it maybe later. But it's always fun to see an H1 because they are, yeah, it's really hard to stay in your lane, and it's hilarious to be passenger in them too, because Chris Vicks gave me a ride in his one time very briefly, and like you're sitting so far away from the driver of that thing, and it takes the cake of the furthest distance ever, even in modern bloated full size trucks and SUVs. The Hummer H1 still takes the cake for the best place for divorcing couples. If you're being super far away or whatever, it's like really good to have a lot of space in that. If you're looking for that, it's also you're not very comfortable or anything, but they're pretty cool. I remember one of my baseball stars that I looked up to on the Pirates back in the 90s. He actually daily drove an H1 Hummer back then, which was I thought it was super cool as a kid, but I'm like, man, what was that dude doing? I mean, it was a cool status thing, and it certainly turned heads, but man, not what I would be flexing in if I was a rich sports star. But they're cool for sure. It's one of those fun, like you said, poster car kind of things. But yeah, I mean, they're cool. They're good at a lot of stuff, but just hard to live with the parking, with driving, all that stuff. That's funny. And let me see. So Chad says, Florida news moment. Have you seen the lady accused of texting and driving but only had one hand? She won the case since it was physically impossible. I actually saw the video, like the I don't know if it was a body cam video or something, but there's an actual video on that. And yes, I saw, she's like, nope. And he's like, you sure it wasn't your left hand? She's like, nope, I need that one to drive. Like, I did see that. That was, there's a lot of really like good common sense cops out there that, are reasonable. And then there's ones where it's just like, okay, dude, clearly you saw wrong. Like, do you think this like lady's going around like having no hands on the steering wheel? So just so she can, text or whatever, like, I don't know. So I feel like sometimes they need to know when to like cut their losses, some of this stuff. But yeah, that was crazy. And Chad said the officers said, I saw your right hand. She said, tell it I said hi. Yeah, which is hilarious. And let me see. And Danny says, I'm with the people who say drivers are getting worse and worse by the year. Yeah, I think there is some of that. And that's, I won't go on the tangent, but this is why I do welcome the autonomous cars, because it's just going to be better in all the ways for the masses. And, I think it'll be a long time we can still enjoy driving ourselves. Yeah, so there's actually, I was listening to another podcast about this more recently, and I was concerned about insurance getting super expensive for the driven cars in this autonomous future. But, because of the way that it would have to be rolled out, which would be gradual, all those things would also change gradually. and so I don't think it's something that's going to, price regular drivers out of driving themselves. Because for a while there, it's just not going to make sense still for a lot of people, like families that, can't be mounting a car seat every time they get into a Waymo or whatever. So I think that, you know, but just for the people who don't, need to have car seats in, or don't, that don't have any reason to actually own a car, for them, it's going to be fantastic. And it's going to be good for all of us, because everyone else who wants to pay attention and actually drive, will be the ones that actually are out there driving, and everyone else will be cruising in their Waymos in the right hand lane. I'm all for it. I absolutely am all for it. I cannot wait for the autonomous stuff to come. Eventually, yes, it will mean the end of driven cars a long ways off, maybe 50 years or something. But like for now, like it's going to be, really, really nice. So I'm looking forward to that, because I agree, drivers are getting worse and worse. They're getting more distracted. They're more short-tempered. I mean, just all the things that are just like showing like we shouldn't trust people with this anymore, clearly, because they don't have the care to properly operate a vehicle in many cases. And it's one of those things, sadly, where the bad apples ruin it for the rest of us eventually. But like, it's been proven for a long time people just can't safely drive, and it's getting worse. So I think we need to start, since we're never going to be able to pass any stricter licensing or enforce things any better, it just give people the carrot and give them what they want anyway, which is to not drive. So let them do that. And, again, let us keep enjoying the driving here for a while longer. But let me see. Where are we here? Yeah, Lancelot doesn't know what the cop was thinking either there with the pulling over the one-handed lady. Let me see. He also says that does bring the headline Florida man to a whole new level. Yeah, in this case, it was the cop that was the Florida man. Let me see. Oh, Chad, thank you so much for a super chat. I really appreciate that. He says F-250 Carhartt edition, fabric is the upgrade. Yeah, I didn't look into that too much, because that's like, the last thing that I'd be interested in all the ways. And I'm not even paying attention for reviewing it, because I'm not going to review it on this channel, because again, it's just not my viewer demographic either typically. But yeah, you're right. That's a good point. There has been that one. Maybe that's going to be the start of a new generation of stuff that does still have those kinds of collaborations. But you're right, that is one recent one with a brand. I've forgotten about that, because again, I paid so little attention to it. So you're right, they are still slowly doing them. Maybe they're making a comeback. And yeah, thanks for making that point there. Let me see. Lancelot says it'd be cheaper to get Carhartt seat covers for the F-250. Probably. But, I mean, we've already seen how, people will pay for badging. And I mean, I'm guilty of that as well. I will admit, the bullet. I mean, there's some unique touches of the bullet, with the paint and all that. But like, it's essentially a performance pack level 1 Mustang under the skin. And so if, the look is unique, but a lot of it is just the bullet emblem and just that special edition that many Mustang people fork out money for. And I see Lance says the bullet was cool though. True. But I'm sure a lot of people that are huge Carhartt fans are probably foaming at the mouth to get their hands on the F-250 as well. So I'm just trying to say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I suppose, and not try and act like I'm immune to that as well, because I absolutely am a sucker for a good brand collaboration. But let me see here. So see more discussion there about the cop. Yeah, doubling down is crazy. And Brian says his spots this week was 2 Hummer H2s. Nice, that's cool. And Vishal says looks like Mitsubishi might finally be bringing more new product, truck, and even possibly the Pajero. Of course, likely Nissan rebadges, but still nice to see new things other than Outlander. Yeah, and I read about that on Friday, but it didn't seem super clear exactly which ones are coming to the States. I think Mitsubishi did confirm to TFL Truck that there is going to be a new pickup for Mitsubishi. And this one will be a collaboration with Nissan. So basically the new Frontier will spawn a Mitsubishi variant. Yeah, it's still a sad state of affairs that like, the only thing to get excited for at Mitsubishi is badge engineered stuff because that seems like that's basically what it's going to come down to. I mean, Outlander is based on Rogue, but it still does have some noticeable changes and, unique things like the plug-in hybrid version and stuff. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be quite as, terrible as just swapping badges. They could actually make, something a little bit their own. And I hope they do. But yeah, as far as like the SUVs, it sounds like the Montero is probably going to come. And if Montero is just based on Frontier, then I'm guessing Montero will be Mitsubishi's version of the Xterra. The only curveball with that is it seems like Xterra is still a ways off. And I mean, the Montero has been spied like already running around in like full production appearance and everything. So I don't know if the Montero is actually the first and that's the underpinnings for the Xterra, or if they're completely separate vehicles, which I'm having to assume is the way it's going to go. They're completely different things. I mean, again, Mitsubishi has the money. They're huge in other parts of the world. So there's nothing stopping them from doing something themselves, but it seems like they're really just all about these, alliance vehicles instead. So I don't know what to make of that, but it sounds like other SUVs are coming. But the sad thing for any old school Mitsubishi fans, I guess, is the whole product plan, even globally. There's like no sign of any sedans. So forget about an Evo, not happening, in this decade, and certainly not happening probably even beyond that. But it's just sad to see like, oh look, a whole line of veiled SUVs and trucks. Like, again, I mean, they understand the U.S. market. That's probably the way to go. But I mean, sedans are making a comeback, and there's a growing group of people, and especially young people that, like we talked about, in the last stream, that are into sedans. And so, I don't know. I feel like Mitsubishi, I mean, again, if you're going to just pull Nissan stuff, why not do a rebadged version of Sentra, call it the Lancer? I guess Ultima's on its way out. So probably not any future there, but like, it'd be interesting to see them bring back the Galant even, as a proper midsize to actually do battle with, all the others out there. I mean, I don't think they would even be able to, match Kia and Hyundai on volume anymore. But I think, the 10-year warranty could help them, and they could actually, if it's a value play, could actually, make some sense. But sounds like, at least this year, all we're going to get is a Mitsubishi badged version of the Nissan Leaf. And that's it, which, I mean, could actually be a really great car here. Again, if gas continues to stay high and stuff. Sounds like, they're trying to reopen stuff still, but it's still touch and go. So I'm not, banking on that just yet. So we'll see. And, gas will still stay high the rest of the year and slowly come down, if it does get resolved. But so maybe it'd be a good year to launch that Mitsubishi thing. It does seem like other car companies might be, trying to allocate, more EV production and trying to, get things out a little quicker to kind of capitalize on right now in this current climate that we're in. So we'll see how it all plays out. But hopefully maybe it plays out in Mitsubishi's favor here. We'll see. See, Lancelot says it'd be nice if they did. Yeah, another 3000 GT VR4. Yeah, I know. I mean, unless maybe they're hiding, the fun stuff, but like their plan, there was like, nothing, no sports cars, no sedans, nothing at all like that. It'd be fairly easy. I mean, because the old 3000 GT, there was the VR4, but I guess they didn't. They had the 6-cylinder, but it was just the naturally aspirated V6, right? So I mean, not super, historical, but I mean, a twin turbo V6 in a 3000 GT, is a VR6. I'm sure Volkswagen would have a problem with that. But like something along those lines, if you use the Z as a platform, and just maybe try and rework it for all-wheel drive, could be, kind of a fun way. I mean, I guess they had that. You could just take the old Infiniti Q60, throw Mitsubishi stuff on it, make it cheaper, and you can actually recycle an old platform that you're underutilizing or not using at all probably anymore. But I mean, that shows, they have the capability of, and you could, have the back seat. Basically, just take the Q60 and do a discount version, and maybe that would sell better than the Q60 did, which is still such an underrated car. I'm so sad the Q60 wasn't a huge sales success. And also, Lancel, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships too. I really appreciate the generosity and happy to see a bunch of people able to get those memberships. I don't see any familiar faces, I don't think, here that are usually in the chat, but hopefully they can join in here now that they're members. So thank you so much though for that. And yeah, I'm sure they appreciate it too. And let me see. I see everyone else excited about the 3000 GT idea. And Kyle says his spot was the new Dodge Charger 4-door. First time I saw one on the road. Nice. That's awesome. I don't think I've, aside from, the media drive, I don't think I've actually seen a 4-door driving out in public yet. I've seen some 2-door ones every once in a while. I actually saw a Daytona like 2 weeks ago, but I haven't seen any of the 4-doors. That's cool. And thanks for stopping by again, Kyle. And let me see. Danny says, do you think Subaru will eventually make a hybrid Impreza? That car would be a pretty good candidate for the hybrid system. I mean, it's plug and play with Crosstrek. It's all right there in the same factory and everything pretty much. Although I think maybe they're still in the middle of the switchover. I'm pretty sure hybrid Crosstrek is in Japan. I think they build those ones in Japan. Regular Crosstreks are built in America now. But regardless, like, yes, they absolutely could do that. I think the problem is Impreza. Impreza is selling horribly, like really bad. And I think it's just people just really want the Crosstrek, and I guess it's not that much more. I mean, there is a couple grand savings going for Impreza, but I guess people just don't think it's worth the trade-off. I don't know if Impreza just doesn't look exciting enough for people, or if they just really want that preparedness of I have extra ground clearance or whatever. I don't know, but so bottom line, I would assume that they won't do an Impreza hybrid, because I'm assuming Impreza may actually just go away, which is crazy to say. I mean, but they killed Legacy and barely shed a tear over that. I think Impreza is next. Sadly, I don't like that, but it's a very competitive segment for that compact segment. And now you have Corolla with all-wheel drive, so you can't even claim that Subaru's got that exclusive. I mean, you can say it's still the only mechanical all-wheel drive in that segment, I suppose. But anyone who's really obsessing over an all-wheel drive system again probably wants that extra ground clearance. And an Impreza is just the worst fuel economy in the segment, I'd say at this point probably. I mean, it's cool because it offers a hatch, and not many of them offer a hatch anymore, and that's the only way you can get those now. So there's a few little things you could say for Impreza, but again, we're talking about a tiny niche of people that there just doesn't leave a whole lot of sales there, especially again when everyone just goes for the Crosstrek. So yeah, I wouldn't count it in a hybrid Impreza, and I would be amazed if Impreza lasts more than another year or two. Whenever this generation runs its course, I mean, it's fairly fresh, so I don't think they'd kill it right away. They'll probably just see it through till the end of what the planned thing is. So I think Impreza came out in 2024, I believe. So maybe they'll run it till 2029. The only Hail Mary for Impreza is if they just have to keep it around because they're going to do the STI, hatch like we saw in Japan. If that actually does come to fruition, then they need to keep those the tooling up for that hatchback body style. Then it's kind of a sunk cost at this point. If you're gonna have one scratching the back of the other, you might as well just kind of keep them both going to make them symbiotic with a relationship. So I'm assuming that could save Impreza, but if they decide not to do that hatch STI, then yeah, I would say it definitely you won't see Impreza into the 2030s again, unless there's some giant resurgence in Impreza sales to make them change their mind. But yeah, it's unfortunate. And Michelle says a new 3000 GT would be awesome. Maybe use a Z. All right, you're right there. like minds, great minds think alike, or however that goes. Clearly not this one, but yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page there, Michelle. And Let me see. Kyle says, I remember going into the Mitsubishi dealer in the mid 1990s with my aunt and seeing a brand new 3000 GT in the showroom. Oh, that's awesome. Believe it was red. Great looking car. That's the kind of stuff that really imprints on you, as a kid or a young adult. It's that's cool. I don't think I was in Mitsubishi dealer in the 90s. I know, yeah, I was in a Suzuki dealer because I know, like, back when my dad bought his Impreza Outback Sport in '97. I know we crash shopped it with CRV. It's crazy. I remember it so clearly, but so I remember like the first gen CRV, like kicking around in the back of that. And we took it for a test drive even and checked that out. Then we went to the Suzuki dealer and test drove the Grand Vitara, or maybe it was the actual Vitara Sport because it wasn't the big one. It was yeah, whatever I think it was maybe just called the Vitara. I don't know, but like whatever the one that was competing in that same segment, kind of what would become subcompact crossover eventually. I think those are the only three. I don't think we actually ever went to the Mitsubishi dealer because they had some stuff too, right, at that time period. But yeah, anyway, that's cool. You got the 3000 GT. And yeah, I don't think I remember seeing any really cool stuff in showrooms back then. But that's awesome. That's a great memory. Mr. 705 says, not car related, but have you been following the Reckless Ben YouTube videos on the bricks and minifigs Lego collection being stolen? It's 2 parts so far. You might find it interesting. It uncovered, let me see, I follow up on, so I don't know if it just, maybe your comment got cut off there, but I haven't heard of that. I've never heard of that YouTuber, and I do enjoy building Legos with my daughter, but I don't really follow the Lego world too much. So that's crazy. That stuff got stolen. Is it like that valuable that is there like super rare ones that are maybe like huge money or something? That's just kind of wild, and also sad because with other valuables, it's like you didn't actually like construct them typically, unless you like built a car from the ground up or something. But like with Lego, it's like you spend all the time to build them, so that would be definitely a bummer. And Danny's following up here on the prom driving time. He said it was 10:15 at night. Okay, yeah, it's still for a 5-year-old. I mean. That's a choice. That probably wasn't a very happy 5-year-old if they're up at 10:15 at night. But let me see. Raphael, thanks for stopping by. He says, today I rode next to a fully kitted out white Evo, followed by a black 5th gen Supra, shiny enough that I could barely look at it. That's crazy. Yeah, it's fun whenever you're driving around a bunch of car shows, which I guess I can say kind of is cheating. But I drove past a line of cars that were kind of close to the area where there was a car show. So there was a couple of things lined up. I can't remember exactly what. There's a few just random like Mustangs and other stuff that wasn't super notable. But today there must have been another car show nearby the trolley museum we were at, because there was like someone had one of the old like Ford Phantom like long coupe hot rod kind of things with a pointy slant nose. There's one of those. There was like I'd say it was like a late 30s Chevy hot rod kind of thing too. Those, it's always fun to see those. And my daughter actually gets kind of excited about seeing those because it's really different than like regular cars. And she's familiar with them slightly from my old Hot Wheels collection, so it's kind of cool for her to see those. So we're hoping to go to a couple of car shows. We'll see. She just hates the loud, like the thing that ruined it. We went to Cars and Coffee like when she was 2 or something, and some idiot in a C6 straight piped Corvette like went to red line next to a 2-year-old, like freaked her out, and that like she does not like loud noises, and so that was like, nope, never going to a car show again for her. And I don't blame her with that being like terrifying for her. So but I'm trying to see if we can go to a car show where it'll be fairly quiet and people are not trying to showboat, and maybe we can get her back to going to a car show again. I think she enjoys going to them. Like, so we did one other one that a family friend put on, and that was okay, but it was still very much like, okay, if we see someone getting ready to start their car up, we're gonna make sure we get away, because like everyone's got, super loud exhaust typically, and she's super not into that yet. She enjoys some stuff. Like when I still have some press cars that have good sounds, as long as it's not like ear bleeding loud, she actually does like, gas cars. It's just not whenever they're straight piped and right next to you. And I don't like that either very much, honestly. But let me see. And Taste Bud also brings up, as far as the bumpers and the crash safety, he says the bumpers are for pedestrian safety. Yeah, that's true. The bumpers do help with that. And that's really what those are designed for. But even there, sometimes they help. It comes down to the vehicle, though. Some of these vehicles, you would like to think that maybe they consider it pedestrians, but you look at these, horizontal or these, vertical grills on, some of these SUVs and trucks and stuff. And it's like, yeah, zero F's given about pedestrians with that, which is not great, but it's kind of hard to change that form factor, unfortunately. But hopefully, again, they get better safety equipment so that they, are a little bit more pedestrian friendly with that in the future. But Michelle says the newest Tesla 3 and Y are a lot better with build quality. Interiors are much better and refined. They drive better too. I was blown away when I drove the new Y, how much better it felt than the old one. Nice. That's good to hear that it was improved. Yeah, my buddy actually. So I brought out. I think I mentioned in the last show, Maserati. I had a Maserati Gran Turismo press car, which you'll be seeing a review on this week. And that's a fun one if you actually enjoy my reactions, even if it's unrelatable and expensive. If you want to see me have a good time, check that out. I'd appreciate the support, because usually those kinds of videos don't get very many views. But I took it out to show him. We met up, just to hang out and chat for a little bit last week, and he brought out his Model Y, and he's like, "Have you driven a Model Y?" I'm like, "No, I've never driven one." And so he's like, "Why don't you take it for a little spin?" So that's the first time I drove a Tesla since I drove the Model S back in late 2019. I mean, it was fine. There's nothing objectionable about the driving experience. It was, smooth. It was comfy. I didn't like not having a gauge cluster in front of me still, though. That's my main gripe. But yeah, otherwise, he said, like, my buddy was really won over by the software. That was the thing that really impressed him the most. I even asked him, though, because he came out of a WRX, and I was like, "Do you miss exhaust sound? Do you miss anything about the gas car experience?" Because this is his first EV. And he's like, "Honestly, no." He's like, and he had like a really nicely tuned 370Z back in the day with really good exhaust on it. And, he really enjoys stuff, and he really loves manual. So like, he says like the only thing he misses is the manual transmission. But he's like, everything else, he's like, I'm, paying, I think he said for the last month, and he does a lot of driving. I think he drives, I don't know how many miles, but he's already up. He got his Model Y right before the tax credit, I think, ended last year. And he's already up over 10,000 miles in it. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm saving so much money on gas." He's like, "If I was in the WRX right now, it's like it'd be ugly with his gas bill." Versus, I think right now he's paid like $40 this month in electrical. And he does, again, a lot of driving, and it's only $40. So like, he's like, I'm very happy with his choice there. Again, still, I'm not a big Tesla fan myself, but to each their own, and he's really enjoying it. But let me see, and thank you for the info though there about the build quality, Michelle. I appreciate that. And Lance thought they're giving more info on the bad roads in Montana. He says they use sand, but Laurel, Montana has terrible roads. So that's unfortunate. I don't know. So how do they get screwed up if they're using sand? Is it just like they just are really old roads that they're really not bothering to pave or fix? Or I'm curious what leads to bad roads if it's not salt. Because around the Northeast here, it's just like, salt's always the main culprit for that stuff. That's interesting. And Fook says, "My first time getting pulled over was on my 18th birthday, 52 and a 40, and he let me go." Well, that's very kind of him. Yeah. And like, yeah, my only speeding ticket I've ever gotten was going 81 and a 65. And there the cop knocked it down to 5 over to save me the points. Didn't really save me much money though, because that part of West Virginia, very sneakily charges you like $165 court fee, and it's like $5 extra for each 5 miles per hour over you go or something. So it's like the speed is completely irrelevant. I could have been doing like 200 and it'd probably be like a $50 difference. But like, at least he saved me the points, so I appreciate that. That was nice of them, and it showed they just wanted the money. They didn't, actually want to, screw people's licenses or anything. So slap on the wrist, take the money and run is their mentality. But let me see. Lancelot says it'd be cheaper to get. Yeah, okay, we talked about the Carhartt. Yeah, seat covers there. And he also says I have a few Carhartt T-shirts. They're priced nicely for my size and are very high quality. That doesn't mean I want a badge truck though. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean it's good when you find a brand that actually is made well, because there's so many quality in clothing and in everything these days has just dropped off. So I'm sure those brands that actually still do good quality stuff really make a good business for themselves. And you see, TW says, hello, Matt. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well too. They said, I was wondering if Nissan has fixed or improved their CVT. I've avoided them after running into the issue with their Rogue. So I'm curious how old your Rogue is. As far as, so my understanding of the Nissan, and actually talking to Nissan executives about this, I talked to them on the Sentra drive back in the fall. The CVT with Nissan was the Jacko CVTs, which they used in a bunch of stuff. And it's been at least 10 years since they finished using that transmission. So anything in the past 10 years should be better. And even with that CVT, the most problematic applications were that paired with the V6. A high torque scenario for any CVT is a tough thing for them to do. And it's not a great recipe. And this is why when you see, V6 vehicles these days, or you see high powered anything, even a turbo 4, if it's got a lot of power, it's not going to be running a CVT. So that's, that was the main pain point, I guess I should say, the pressure point of, the Muranos, Maxima even, those were the main real bad ones with that, where it was extra widespread. Now, there were still some people that, again, did run into issues with Rogues, with Altimas. But there's a lot of people that also have had really good luck. And they say as long as you religiously change fluids and stuff, you mostly, mitigated a lot of those concerns. But yeah, but I talked to Nissan about this last fall, and they were like, yeah, that it's still this, ghost that haunts them. And I told them, I'm like, you guys should do some kind of marketing campaign. I know it's not sexy to talk about a transmission, but if there's a lot of people that still truly, are unaware of the new transmissions and the fact that, they've improved all this stuff and fixed all this stuff, I think it's worth doing a marketing campaign to raise awareness, or even do another media program of, hey, come to our, I don't know, they probably don't build the transmissions in America, but even if it's international, whatever, fly journalists to wherever you build these new transmissions and get coverage on hey, look, here's the new Nissan transmission, here's how they do it, whatever the supplier is or whatever, and get coverage to just raise awareness, hey, look, a new transmission, and just force that connection. So there's greater awareness, for the masses out there that, just don't know that, yes, any car company that sees a problem area like that, they desperately want to fix it. And if they can't fix it, again, like the case of pairing it with a V6, where it's just going to be, way too expensive to make a stout enough CVT, it's not worth, the trade-offs there. You're just better off throwing in a regular, automatic. But Nissan knew that was terrible 15 years ago, and they desperately tried to, correct that as fast as they could. They got rid of that stuff as fast as they possibly can. And this is why, there was revised CVT designs and the later stuff where it made sense to keep the CVT around. And some of the things they did keep the CVT around for a while, like the Maxima, had it, I think, right up until the end, right? If I remember correctly. So, there were some where they left it in there, and maybe it was just they had their hands tied or something. I don't know. But any of the, next generation of those problematic vehicles, or again, just avoid the Maxima, for example, or again, just be very religious about doing those fluid flushes and maybe don't beat on it, and drive it super hard if you're trying to, not put out full torque for that, transmission all the time. But like, yes, all the modern stuff, no resemblance of that transmission, and a lot of the stuff has gone back to regular automatics even. Like Pathfinder, for example, had a CVT. I reviewed the CVT one. It was terrible. It was one of the least exciting cars I've ever driven. Did not like it. And they swapped back to the ZF9 speed for this current generation Pathfinder as a result. And also just the feel, people wanted to have a more natural feel. And I think the regular new Nissan CVT you see in Sentra and others is actually a much more natural feeling, less rubber bandy CVT. But yeah, it's all new stuff. So if you like Nissans, or you have faith in everything else they do, but you were worried about the transmission, long answer, I apologize, but yes, it's all new stuff. I have confidence in what they're doing. I have confidence in their leadership. And also, I appreciate the little goat, little trophy there that was sent as a gift. That's really cool. Thanks for doing that, Germ there. And that's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the gifts still as far as like how that works in YouTube world. But thanks. That's fun. I appreciate that. So yes, that's the download there on the Nissan CVT. All new stuff. I fully endorse, all the Nissan stuff right now. It's really good stuff. And actually, one of my friends, family members, just picked up a Kicks like a week or two ago. And she seems to enjoy it so far. But I mean, they make great stuff. I really think Nissan's on a great path there, in my opinion. And also, Mr. 705, thank you for the gift as well there. And the flow state is very flowy with its hovering there in the chat. But yeah, so I think that's all the Nissan stuff's pretty good. I think they're on a better path than Honda right now. So like I actually foresee Nissan overtaking Honda as far as brand perception in the late 2020s here, because they're just, the product's gonna be way better. It's gonna be fresher stuff, and I think reliability is going to be better too, because again, that 1.5T and all these Hondas is not a great motor. People are complaining about even the new V6, the dual overhead cam, and even the Pilot and stuff. The variable cylinder management stuff is problematic. Supposedly there's workarounds and stuff, thinking if you can pull fuses or something, but like I don't have a lot of confidence in Honda's engineering right now, honestly. The hybrid stuff seems to be pretty solid, but and then you look at the dumpster fire of leadership, and just the confusion, and having all these blank spots in the lineups, and extending out your stuff so it's ancient. I think the old stuff could potentially, be still pretty solid, but I would feel more comfortable right now recommending a Nissan to someone than a Honda, which is, I would have not said that in the past 10 years. But, I think Nissan used to have really, a good amount of prestige in the 90s. They were right up there with Honda, I'd say. Maybe not quite as legendary, but, very legendary and very, very big. They're a huge company. Nissan's way bigger than Honda, so they have actually more money, especially now that they're on a better path where they're going to start, rolling in some more profits. But they're a huge company. They have the resources. They have the engineering department to, do better things. And and part of Nissan's woes with the CVT days back, in the early 2010s, was Carlos Ghosn, who was running them into the ground, and he's like, the forbidden word you can't even say around Nissan, because they're just so badly, scarred by that. But, once you got the bad leadership out, that's when everything changed and started improving. This current CEO, I think he did some good, or the old CEO did some good stuff. Now we got this new CEO that's going to even take it to the next level. And that's why I desperately just wish there'd be new leadership at Honda, because it just seems like, we're having some real questionable decisions there, and it just, I'm worried about their future. But I'm hoping they have, a good future again, if they can kind of, figure out the leadership side and figure out the money side of it too. But anyway, long tangent there. I apologize. But also, Chad says, have you ever been in or reviewed a car with a car phone installed? That's a fun question. I don't think I've ever reviewed something with a car phone. I have been in cars with car phones. Back whenever I was, a detailer at the Audi, BMW, Porsche dealer back in the late 2000s and very early 2010s, there was fairly often, we'd get in, the S classes traded in with the car phones, or even, the Audis had them, the A8, I think you were able to get it in. I think even I remember being in a 911 Turbo. I don't know, it was a 996 that had the car phone installed. I think it was a 996 Turbo. Yeah, there was one of them that had that. But yeah, I remember a few car phones for sure. It's I never was able to try them out or anything, but it must have been fun. And the chat also says, do you think EV trucks will have a comeback with new tech? I'm not an engineer, but I don't know why they don't give them a transmission. Porsche does it for their sports EVs. So I think with the transmission thing, yeah, like it does make sense to do in the Taycan, but even there, it's a 2-speed. And I think I'm not an engineer either, so I'm not going to give a great answer here. But my understanding is that in most applications, it's just not needed. And if it's, and transmissions are expensive, they're complicated. If you can remove that, you don't desperately need that, then I think that's why they've avoided it. And I mean, like, yeah, Porsche has done it, and but Porsche, any of these European vehicles, they're always over-engineered. I mean, look at like the plug-in hybrids from Mercedes and stuff. They have a separate transmission for the electric stuff in the back, and then there's the regular transmission up front, and all that has to communicate. It's like, holy crap, I feel so bad for those mechanics, and also people paying those mechanics fees in 10 years of this stuff fails, because it will fail. It's like, oh man, very overcomplicated. So I think it's just that, trying to not complicate. I understand, like, the motivation of it. Oh, well, we can have amazing range or something. But because electric motors are so efficient already, again, it's not a huge benefit to putting in like a 6-speed or an 8-speed or something like that. I don't think. I could be wrong, but to me, the fact they haven't done it already means there's a good reason why. Otherwise, these are the days when they really are trying to eke out all the range they can. Once we have better batteries, here in the next few years, it's going to be irrelevant. It doesn't even matter. As far as the efficiency goes, really, because it's all just, going to fix itself with the batteries being so energy dense and the electric motors getting better on their own. But I would have to assume there's a good reason why. Anything like that, whenever it's like, oh, why don't they do this? Like, typically, I just defer to like, well, all the smart people that design these things would have done it if it made sense. So I just have to trust them, but I don't know exactly why, but I would just assume it's just a very quickly diminishing return situation with gears in those, but I could be wrong. And Lancelot says, we all just want GR Corollas. Cheers. I've got coffee tonight. So yeah, but if any of you are drinking at home, first GR Corolla mentioned here, it took us almost an hour to get to it. So but thanks so much, Lancelot, for working that in. Cheers to everyone. And let me see here. So, oh, sorry, I missed the other super chats here coming into. I apologize. And Lancelot, I appreciate the hype super sticker as well. But yeah, sorry everyone for making you wait here for those super chats. So Chad, thank you for super chat. He says Slate is accepting orders in June. Hopeful. Yes, I think what they say, June 27th or 24th, something like that. And I think they said that's actually the day when they will announce final pricing for those two, because obviously if they're taking people's real orders, you have to tell them how much they're going to have to pay. So yes, we'll finally get a big piece of that puzzle. And they said they're going to be doing deliveries here, I think they said late Q4, which means they're going to try and get out a few before the end of the year. But, I'm sure actual volume production will be, early next year. But yeah, I'm super excited for that. It's a shame it's not already right now out, because I think this is a peak time again for EVs and also for affordable stuff. But we'll see. I'm hoping it'll still be really good for them. I'm really hoping they do an actual media drive and they find my email address somewhere, because I know you also advocated for me there, Chad, sending them an email too. But I'm hoping, I have all my other buddies in the car reviewing world, so I got my ear to the ground. I can hopefully whenever invites do go out, if they do have a media drive, hopefully I can weasel my way into that one, because I am truly passionate about spreading the message of, hey, you can get something for 20 something thousand that's electric and hopefully cool. So we'll see. But yeah, and I hope if you do place an order, Chad, let me know what you end up going for. And Juan, thank you so much for a super chat though, and a generous one at that. He says, anyone remembers the Mitsubishi Starion? My friend bought one and put a super engine in it. Wow, such a beautiful and relatively rare car. Unfortunately, he had to sell it for financial reasons. That's the worst. But yeah, I vaguely remember it. They weren't even really. I don't know, I just didn't see them very often, even in the 90s and early 2000s. But yeah, sweet cars for sure. And yeah, I can't remember. There's must be very few in the States, though, I'm guessing, right? At least at this point. I'm sure a lot of them probably rusted away, sadly. And yeah, thank you so much, Juan, for the super chat. And let me see here. So Luke says, I'm a little late. I tried to go to bed, but can't sleep, so screw it. Time to hop on the tube. Well, thanks for stopping by. And hopefully I can bore you to sleep here with the live stream instead. And but yeah, thanks so much for stopping by. Hope you're having a good weekend here, Luke. And Michelle, this friend of mine is car shopping, has a 15 Accord, but has to give it back to his parents so that his sis can use it. He drove a Sonata hybrid and liked it, also likes the K5. Why is there no K5 hybrid? That's a very good question. That's another one I unfortunately do not have an answer for. I mean, it's not like Sonata hybrid's a new thing. They even did it with the last generation. I mean, it's like a very old idea. And the funny thing is they did an Optima hybrid, not for very long, I don't think, but there was an Optima hybrid. I don't know if there's a compliance kind of thing back then or why they did it, and then they decided not to continue. But the platform's right there, unless there's some weird internal politics between Hyundai and Kia that's, Hyundai has to have the upper hand to have the only hybrid or something. But I mean, like when it comes to the SUVs, which are the bigger volume sellers, they're sharing it, with Sportage and all that. So it's a very good question. And also one that you would think, I mean, maybe they will, rush it out here for this next year or something. But yeah, it just seems weird. Like even in 2022, if the K5 was around back then, we had that big spike in gas prices. You think that would have jostled them into, wanting to do that? And they didn't then. I'm guessing they won't now. I don't know why. But with more of that segment also going hybrid, it's getting to be a more and more of a glaring omission for the K5 that I don't think they can afford to keep up if they want to actually keep sales strong for that. Because people just really want hybrids these days for understandable reasons. So if you're shopping, yeah, it's like that immediately disqualifies K5 no matter how much you like it, because it's not there. So I wish I had a good answer for you. I don't know, maybe in international markets they offer a K5 hybrid. I would have to assume they have that in Korea, but maybe they don't. I don't know. But yeah, if anyone else has any ideas on that or has any info, I'd love to hear it. But I've never come across a good explanation as to why it wasn't having the hybrid. I don't know. And Chad says, how do Lotus EVs make sense if their core philosophy is lightweight and communication to the driver? Well, that is the main reason why Lotus fans are only fans of the sports cars and not, the electric stuff. That's going for a different kind of buyer. And I think Lotus, whoever's running them now, I mean, I think they understood, this is a completely different kind of person who would, probably not be into this. I mean, I guess you could make the argument it's the same as, someone who buys a Cayman because it's light, but they also maybe pick up a Cayenne for, the daily driver or for the family car or whatever. So maybe Lotus was hoping to cash in on a little bit of that. But I think mostly they're just going after others. And, I don't know, the thing with Lotus and any of those Geely brands where you have, the Chinese ownership, I don't know why they're not using those brands as Trojan horses to bring in Chinese EVs. I know, you can't import it from China because of the tariffs, but they have other factories built, for some of these. I don't know. I think the Lotuses are still all built in China, but surely they could try the factory that builds the Amira, put in some Electra production there if you can, and then ship them in. But I mean, if they gave that the best Geely electric vehicle tech, and the same thing goes for Volvo. I feel like there's still sandbagging Volvo and Polestar, because those are other brands in the Geely empire there that are if they put the top Chinese tech in those, I mean, they'd be unstoppable because again, right now, like you can't, have anything else. And I know like the where's the EX60 going to be built? I can't remember, but like that Volvo does have an actual production facility in the States, and you would think, again, there must be a good reason why, because I'm sure someone has thought of this already, but like, why are they not leveraging that, and just completely mopping the floor with their competition? Because it seems like you got this really good Chinese tech. Maybe it's the Chinese that just don't actually want to share it or something. I don't know, but like, it would go back to Geely and benefit those Chinese companies. So I just, that's another one of those head scratches of why not, getting back to like the K5 hybrid, why not do this thing that seems like it would make a lot of sense. But yeah, but it is a tough sell, and this is why Lotus is kind of going back to the sports cars, and hopefully they also understand, like, they can pull a Porsche and they can, special editions, they can do, lower volume, but higher profit. And, I mean, not like the EVs were cheap, but like, I think just staying in their lane and sticking to mostly the sports cars. I know they had, like the Carlton in the past and stuff. I think that's what it was called, right? You can do like sedans like that, but yeah, it's got to be light. And I think that will be another problem that eventually fixes itself once again, because you'll have solid state, which will allow these EVs to get back to being lighter in the 2030s. And especially with the Lotus EVs being expensive, the expensive stuff's going to get solid state first because it's going to be an expensive tech, initially. So I think that, maybe they just wanted to kind of plant their flag in the ground, now, but they're actually going to, get back to those core tenets for those bigger vehicles, maybe. But even then, even if it's gas power, or even if it is solid state, like it's still going to be, kind of expensive, heavy and bloated. So I don't know. I think, them bringing back the Esprit, it sounds like, and others are going to help, them to, get back on track there, hopefully. But I mean, right now, I'm hoping that Lotus gets a really nice boost this year and in the next couple of years, while Porsche figures out what they're doing with Cayman. And even if they do bring Cayman to market, as the EV version, then, well, Emira is the gas one. And, eventually once the gas Cayman comes back, you'll have that to compete, but that's going to be a few years, and it's going to be probably a compromised platform if they have to, try and shoehorn a mid-engine setup into this EV. That could be, not ideal. So I think the Emira is really positioned nicely right now to really win some new Lotus fans from Porsche. I mean, Porsche diehards are never going to really change. They'll probably just stick to the old stuff. But, for anyone who wants new stuff, I'm hoping that Lotus kind of, has a good chance to shine here. And Luke says, I'd love the WRX without cladding, 10 more horsepower, and the new Outback infotainment system. I agree. I think a lot of people, I mean, even, most people are probably fine with the horsepower because you can easily tune it, and get a ton of power. That motor seems to be very tuner friendly. That's what people love about that generation WRX. But yeah, I mean, you can paint the cladding. There is actually, a lot of people that do that, it seems. There's actually one that popped up at the dealer I work with that they got traded in that had the cladding painted, and it looked so much better. But the infotainment system is the thing that's really hard to change, So yeah, if they can just even put that in, the rest of the stuff I think people could probably fix pretty easily. But they should offer a painted cladding option. And there's a little bit of hope because, like in the Solterra, again, totally different vehicle, but like Solterra offers a painted cladding for only the white color, and I think it's only on the top touring trim or something. But you can get, they're dabbling with the idea of paying a little bit extra to paint the cladding. I don't love the premise of you have to pay extra to get the rest of your car painted. But, if they're going to at least offer that, and they, still want to stick by their guns that, the unpainted is the way to go, like at least offering that, would be really nice, even for an upcharge. So we'll see. Maybe they'll come around to that here for the refresh or the new version of the WRX. We'll see. And let me see here. Dave says, hey, Matt, do you have a favorite car designer? Yeah, Ian Callum is my favorite. Just so many iconic cars, whether we're talking about, the Astons of the, the 2000s and 2010s, the Jags, and he's the one who did F-Type. And there's just so many great cars that he's designed. So he's definitely my favorite, I'd say. There's other good ones for sure. And there's like the one who did all the like Lambos. I can't remember his name. He did all the Lamborghinis. Like he did the Murcielago, the Gallardo. And then he has since gone on to, I believe, Hyundai or someone else, but no, because there's another designer for Hyundai. I don't know, but I can't remember who it was, but they were, maybe they were working for Audi now or something. I don't remember, but whoever did those early 2000s Lamborghinis, I think did a really good job, and they have done a bunch of iconic stuff. I think they were also the same one that did the Veyron, and just some others. So I can't remember what their name is, but they're pretty awesome in my book too, just from, again, those cool contributions to the car world. But Ian Callum, yeah, to me, and I actually listened to a podcast. He did an interview with a interviewer, which I don't know about you guys. Some podcasts I can take in like small doses sometimes, because whenever it's like a host and a guest, or even two co-hosts, I can't stand when people like talk over each other, and like I'm always like wishing for the host to just shut up and let the person they're interviewing talk, because it's like I'm listening because I want to hear the guest. Like I don't want you to chime in with your own stupid stuff. Like I just want to hear Ian Callum talk. But anyway, that's side rant. But yeah, so that was really cool. I don't remember the name of the podcast because it's not one that I follow, because again, the host isn't my favorite. But yeah, look up Ian Callum did a recent podcast. He talked about what it was like designing like a Bond car and doing some of the other stuff that he's done. And again, designers are kind of interesting. There's things I don't totally agree with some of them, but and one of the other designers I wouldn't say like he does my favorite designs, but I will say I actually was very fortunate that I got to sit on the plane on the way home from the LA Auto Show in 2019 next to the designer of the Mustang for the current generation. Not the guy who did S550 the first, but the one he's the guy who was doing S650. I don't think he was doing like the older S550 stuff, but and yeah, I mean, I even remember, because I was talking to him about Mach-E and how I wasn't a huge fan, honestly, and I think he did some of the Mach-E stuff. So I didn't like rake him over the coals, but I made my opinion known in a polite way. But I was like, I'm just like, worried about new Mustangs at this point, and I hadn't seen S650, and back then even he was like, don't worry, he's like, we're doing some cool stuff with S650. I think I still don't love the interior of S650, but I think the exterior, there's a little bit of a shock factor when it first came out. But I don't know about you guys, but I'm fine with the S650 exterior design. Again, I'm not, drooling over it like I did S550, but like I think they did a good job. But even back then, he was like, "Oh, it'll be fine, don't worry." But that was kind of cool to sit on a plane next to him. It's like, what are the odds, So that was fun. Also, I think Ralph Gilles is also really talented and has done some really cool stuff. He brought back the 300 back in the day. All kinds of cool designs for Mopar here in the 21st century. So he's another legendary one, and one that I have had a few chances to like be in the orbit of and hear him talk to others. I've never actually like sat down and talked to him one-on-one, but very, very cool, very down to earth, and just really cool guy, it seems. So yeah, another favorite there. Great question, Dave. Thanks for asking. And Michelle says, I remember when I was 4 years old, my parents were buying the '05 Chrysler Town & Country. They had a Viper in the middle of the showroom roped off. I remember being so fascinated by it. I bet. Yeah, that would have been a shock value for sure. That's awesome. Let me see. Brian says he's a big Hot Wheels collection too. That's awesome. And Luke says, I noticed Northeast speed limits are very slow compared to the South. That kind of checks out, I guess. Usually the Northeast is a little more restriction happy and trying to, regulate things more versus the free for all you have in other parts of the country sometimes. So that makes sense. And also, it's just geography too. We have tighter areas, tighter, corners and our highways and things like that make it hard to do 80-mile-per-hour speed limits and stuff versus more open spaces, which is one of the things I enjoy about when I am in Texas or other places where it's like you can just hammer down because you got all the space all the time in the world to be seeing in front of you. You don't have to worry about blind corners or anything like that. It's fun. And that's even back when I did the Road to SEMA stuff with with some of the other YouTube buddies. We were driving through like 29 Palms and all these other places in the middle of the desert where there's like hardly anything, and it's a lot of fun. Some of those wide open highways. And let me see. Let's go Caps. B Pens. Nice username. He says, I always thought that it was nuts they didn't talk about the re-engineered transmission at Nissan. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I guess they just didn't want to bring up a sore topic and, accidentally educate people on a bad transmission if they were oblivious to it or something, which I guess I can understand, putting on my attempt at a PR perspective, but like, yeah, especially now that it's so far in the past, I think it'd be really going a long way to win over those former Nissan fans or Nissan buyers that maybe were burned back then, that, maybe still have an affinity for the brand or, just a familiarity with the brand. You could win them back a little easier than a complete brand new conquest buyer that you've, never engaged with before. I think, it would make sense to bring that up, to the public, conscience again, so consciousness again, just so there's more awareness of those new transmissions for sure. And the Germ says, my 2011 Ultima 3.5 CVT lasted 255,000 miles before it started whining and acting funny. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad yours lasted a good long time. And yeah, I think some of it comes down to luck or just, really meticulous maintenance. Because and maybe even a little bit of how it's driven. I don't know. But I'm glad you got a good one and it treated you well. That's great to hear. Yeah, thank you so much again for that GOAT trophy too. And Lancewell says the south side of Laurel, Montana has very narrow streets. If a car is parked on the street becomes a one-way basically. This makes the city prefer to fix the potholes. Interesting. Well, at least they're staying up to date on fixing them a little bit there. But I guess that makes it hard for some of the other parts as far as maintenance if they're focusing on those kinds of things. And Raphael says, I definitely remember the Starion. I was trying to get an RX-7 at the time, but I like that car. Nice. That's awesome. You're able to actually be out in the world shopping for cars back in that heyday. The Germ says, I'm not sure either. I didn't buy the gift. It just had 1,003 free points. God bless. Nice. Well, I'm glad that, because it makes it more fun. So if they're handing out free points for people, again, I don't know, if it boosts the live stream as far as visibility or what, I don't think it's like the regular hype stuff because you can, still hype videos if you're on mobile, I think, which is a separate thing. But I'm glad they're making a little more fun with those. I'm glad you're able to send the flow thing too, Mr. 705. And Darnell says Nissan versus Honda. I think Honda is more likely to partner with China for tech. I agree. Like I've said, a few times in the past, I think, Honda could find themselves in a bad spot in the 2030s and they'll be, ripe for, a takeover possibly or a merger that just, makes them a badge to be used on other things. Because they're going to be really behind, I think, the way they're going. And unlike other brands, Honda's so independent, like one of the things with Stellantis, they actually kind of talked about this with their Investor Day stuff here in the past, week or two here, is Stellantis does have a partnership with Leap Motor, which is another Chinese EV company, and they're really expanding out to some of that stuff in like, South America and others. And so like they do have that tech that they can pull from eventually if they need to and want to. And, all these other Stellantis vehicles are going to be all multi-powertrain capable. And again, they have the stuff waiting in the wings and they have the stuff that they're selling in Europe and stuff. So they have all this tech. So like, I honestly, like, even though like Stellantis with their North American operations are still very short-sighted, in my opinion, they at least kind of have a parachute waiting for them. Once it does go belly up, it's still going to be kind of a messy transition, I'd say. And it still might not be the most competitive because I don't think, Leap Motor is not, like the top thing. There's, the others that are far more prestigious. But, I think that, at least it's something and Honda has nothing. So I think that, partnership's going to be the only really way forward for them probably. let me see here. So Chad says, I had to do a roadside repair and a man in a Blazer EV stopped to help. I had just finished, but thanked him. Don't think if everyone drivers being helpful usually, and that's my fault. So yeah, it's nice that other people want to come and help out. That's very nice to see, and hopefully that's something we continue to see more of. But it does seem to be more and more rare these days. And let me see here. Teddy's asking what he missed. Lots of good conversation already. And the nice thing with these, you can always go back and watch them after the fact if you missed the first hour there. So, but thanks for stopping by, Teddy. And also, CP Mitchell's glad about the GR drink there. And Cam says, hey, everyone, Matt, how do I enter my car in for Member of the Car of the Week? Just send an email or you can send a DM on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. All the contact info is always in the description of every video. So take your pick, whatever, contact thing works for you. Send over, some pictures or a picture is even fine. And, a little blurb about your car and what you love about it and what it means to you or whatever. And happy to have a new member car of the week here. So might do, if you send that in here tonight, I might actually be able to do 2 member posts tomorrow, because being June 1st tomorrow, I'll be doing a new member schedule here, so you guys will see all the new stuff I've got planned for June. But maybe we'll do a member car of the week too. So thanks, Cam, for that. I appreciate that, and always fun to share those whenever they come in. And Mr. 705 says, week 2 complete with the RAV4. I'm still really impressed with this thing. The build quality is so much higher than my old CRV. I'm loving the gas mileage. It's probably going to move to an EV. Nice. Well, that's great. You're enjoying the gas mileage there, and glad that the build quality is good. Even better than an old CRV is pretty. I mean, that's a pretty high bar to start with. So it's great that it's really good. And speaking of build quality, I'm sure you weren't cross shopping with the Jeep Cherokee, but if you were, and build quality was important to you, you dodged a bullet there. I mean, I have this Jeep Cherokee press car right now, and it's probably it's right up there with the Lyric as far as build quality iffiness. But I'm going to show it in the video because, again, I'm always honest. And if something looks, bad, I'm going to show it. The panel gaps, the stuff like just not being solid. There's, like creaks and just not, again, I'm hoping it's just a really early production one. They fix some of this stuff, but you'll hear all my thoughts on the Cherokee in the review. So I won't, go into it too deep here, but build quality could use some improvements, though, I'd say. And let me see. Chad says the Hyundai Palisade front lights look like the Japanese lanterns. Is that on purpose? I don't think so. I think they were kind of going for a just modern, kind of high-end look. But I don't know what the design inspiration was for the new Palisade. I know the old Palisade was inspired by an alligator with their like eye and stuff, and how that kind of works through the headlight of the last gen Palisade. But I don't know what was the inspiration for the new one here, and I wasn't at the media launch for that, so I didn't get to hear from the designer or anything. So I don't know. Someone might have a good answer, but I don't know it, unfortunately. And Vishal says they could easily drop the Sportage hybrid drivetrain into it and send it. I really like that powertrain on the Sportage. It's so refined and smooth. I'm glad you enjoyed the Sportage. So the other press car I have this week is I have a Hyundai Tucson hybrid, which is the same thing as Sportage. And just the RAV4 and some of those just do it a little smoother because of the CVT. It's just the lack of smoothness comes down to just still the communication that I still don't love. And maybe it doesn't, bother you much in the Sportage, or it's maybe a little bit better in your example. But for mine, I mean, this Tucson it's still the same thing of gas engine kicks on, goes it into a lower gear, turbo spools up, and then I get my full. I mean, that doesn't take super long to do all that, but it's just, you can feel all those things happening. And even like this Cherokee, for all of its, other, build quality shortcomings, it's got a ECVT because it's using a lot of the Toyota stuff in it, and it's smooth. And it's a shame. I'm hoping that Hyundai and Kia someday go to a CVT for the next generation hybrid stuff. And I think they're doing that with the new Seltos hybrid, but I don't know for sure because that is like a new powertrain. I thought it was going to be eCVT, but I'm not totally sure. But yeah, I wish they put the Sportage powertrain though in the K5. It would be great because it's strange. So they could do that one, but the Sonata uses a different hybrid system. It's a I think it's a what is it? Yeah, I think it uses the 2-liter if I'm not mistaken. I thought the Sonata was different. Maybe I'm misremembering. But in the Sonata it was smoother than the Tucson and the Sportage for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, and Timothy says, is Ferrari doomed with the Luce? So, and Timothy says, Tesla Model X and S being discontinued, what will be the most popular alternative? So as far as Ferrari and the Luce, we kind of ranted about this last week too, so I won't get too deep into it, but I don't know if Ferrari is doomed. I think it's going to be a flop, and it's going to be, a hard sell to anyone who doesn't just want to stay in Ferrari's good graces. But Ferrari doesn't have a volume problem. They don't have. I mean, they're super, super profitable. I mean, they are, so comfy from a stability standpoint. They can weather the storm of one bad vehicle, especially one that they probably weren't banking on having huge sales for anyway. And I think it also not like they really need a compliance car, but it's something to point to help boost their European, standing as far as the emissions stuff over there. And it also, it's kind of like any of these others, like the Prologue or others, where it's like a first generation kind of platform, and it's just designed to, kind of not be beta testing and, be like a early adopter thing, but like Luce is the ugly duckling that has, some good bones probably, and you'll see those bones evolve over that car's lifespan, and that will be put into other stuff in the future. Maybe a next gen Pro Songway or something, where you then, it's not about the body. It's just, this is the test bed for that essentially. And that's probably why they kind of took a little bit of a flyer with the styling too, because I have to think, I mean, they should have still made it good looking. There's no defense for the styling, but like, I think that it's not a big deal and it will not doom them. It's just going to be a failure, for that one car. But Ferrari's had failures before, and these days they can weather them a lot better than they could even back then. So I think Ferrari's going to be fine. Now, as far as Model X and Model S, the logical, to me at least, way to point people in those vehicles that want something new is to go for Lucids. I think the Lucid Air and the Lucid Gravity are the closest to next generation versions of the S and the X that we have. Same size, kind of, same kind of idea that I think hooked a lot of people onto the S and the X back in the day was, top-notch efficiency, top-notch range, great charge speeds, all those kinds of things. I think that's, kind of why I think it's, the best. And I think actually Lucid has said themselves, they're seeing a lot of conquest from S and X. And it just, it makes sense to me too. And I'm hoping to get a Gravity here. They have one floating around in the press fleet. It just takes forever, and we haven't got it here in our smaller little press fleet. But I really want to do the Gravity because the Air was great. I was really impressed with it. I'd love to do a Sapphire too, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. And Timothy also says, I think Chrysler's in trouble. We'll see how they play Chrysler. It is a shame, and someone even brought up the idea that they could actually just bring Plymouth back for a cheap low end brand. But I think the thing, and actually this dawned on me the other day when I was thinking about this more, Chrysler, I still think they should have been a luxury brand, because if you want to say, okay, we need to have a low end brand, you have Fiat and those poor, just starving dealers that, have only the 500e to sell these days. Like that is, Fiat, that's what Fiat is. They're the car for the masses in the rest of the world, and they do a really good job in the rest of the world. And now, the talk is that this new Chrysler, what are they even? I can't even remember the name of it already. Whatever not the Airflow, but the smaller one, the Aero, I think the Chrysler Aero they're going to call it, and then the Aero Cross. It sounds like, and I don't know 100%, but it sounds like that's just going to be the new Fiat Grizzly, but with different badges. And they even have like two different body styles of that, just like they're planning on doing for the Chrysler, which further, I think, adds fuel to the fire there that is actually going to just be a rebranded Fiat. So they're kind of if that is in fact what they're doing, they're pulling a Dodge Hornet situation again of repurposing a European thing and bring it over. But like, same as like, screwed the Tonale, like just leave the European cars to the European brands. You have them here. You have the dealer network. Like, obviously it'd be harder to move as many because, Chrysler being at the giant, conglomerate dealer versus Fiat oftentimes. I mean, sometimes they're in their own studio, but I think they're also usually just, tossed in with Chrysler anyway and all the others. Like, why not give this stuff to Fiat? If it's going to be cheap stuff and they're all Fiats anyway, leave them as Fiats and, actually put a little bit of money into the Fiat brand in America. Like, you brought it over here for a reason. Why not use that investment and use the boots on the ground you already have to get the affordable stuff to the masses with the Fiat brand. And that also is less risky for Chrysler, because then if this stuff is rebranded stuff that doesn't go over well, it's a silly Fiat, we brought over these European things, we thought maybe people would like them or whatever you want to say, but like it's on them. It's you can, dispose of that if needed. But like, to me, like the excuse is always, Jeep has expensive stuff and we have Maserati. But Maserati is exotic. Like, they keep saying Maserati is luxury, and it's like, yes, it's a luxury, brand in the very loose sense of the word. But like, it's very high-end luxury, and so like they need something to compete even on the lower end with Acura, stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, it drives me crazy the way they're taking Chrysler, because I don't think it's a great way to go about it, especially for profitability. But we'll see how it works out for them. It's not the first time that Stellantis has made a questionable decision, in my opinion. So I don't know, but I heard the spiel, I heard the sales pitch, in the Investor Day presentation. I don't buy it. I don't think that's the right move for Chrysler. But we'll see how it plays out. Lance says Luke Donkerwolk is that's the designer. You're right, of the Lambos. And where is he now? I can't remember. Yeah, he does great stuff. So that's who I was thinking of. Thank you. Lance says a 15 to 17 Mustang GT with a GT350 front end. And I'm not sure if that's in regards to something else we were talking about earlier. I know we're a little bit behind on comments. But yeah, the GT350 was an interesting choice there, because it was like that came out and that still had the old front end. That was a weird cost cutting thing with Ford. They never gave it the updated S550 front end for some reason. But let me see. So Michelle says, I enjoyed the big roads being out here in DFW versus the tighter roads on the East Coast. Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons of both. I love handling, and I love, carving up a back road, obviously. So for me, it's a lot more exciting from a, enthusiast standpoint. But, for those who like, the muscle cars and the wide open spaces, there's some good stuff there. I mean, there are a few good back roads. They're just a little harder to find. You got to go a little further out to get to them. But yeah, I'm very much ingrained in the East Coast kind of driving roads, and I guess West Coast too has some really good stuff. But the middle of the country, it's slim pickings for good windy roads. Typically, I would miss that, I think, if I ever left. Also, Michelle says Nissan e-Power needs to get here ASAP. Seems like a nice system for the driving coverage people have done on it. Yeah, it seems really good. I'm excited for that. That's another reason why, I'm so excited for Nissan's future, because I think that'll be really solid as long as it's engineered well. This is, again, another one of these things where it's like, you have to really make sure that you're coming out of the gate strong with that, and that it's, been heavily revised, thankfully, I think that one has been worked over pretty well, because they already have the e-Power stuff in Europe and Japan. So hopefully by the time it makes its way here, it's had all the bugs worked out of it, so they can hit the ground running and really, make some nice strides with that powertrain. But I'm excited for it too. That'll be great. And let me see. Nico says muscle beats import every time. Spoken like a true Vin Diesel there. Yep. And Nico says another Pirates tee. Yep, another. This is the vintage logo. Just yep, wearing lots of pirate stuff recently. So, but yeah, it's I'll be going to a game here soon. I'm excited. First Pirates game of the year. I don't even know how they're doing. I quit following them, but it's always fun to root on the home team a little bit. And Jedi says, I was quite surprised how much my wife liked the look of both the exterior and interior of the new Lexus ES350H. I mentioned the NX has a refresh coming soon, so she's now curious about it too. Great having your wife getting in the next vehicle purchase. Yeah, it's good whenever you can both be on board with the same stuff and getting excited about it for sure. And I'm glad that people are warming up to the ES design. I'm getting there myself. I'm excited to kind of poke around and play around with one whenever that hits the press fleet. And I think it's going to be another really good one for them. I think Lexus is used to having people be turned off by the styling on the new stuff for a few years, but it's never hurt them with styling. People complained about the RX. That was fine. Obviously the spindle grille was, people hated that on the IS when that came out, a long time ago. So I think, yes, it's just going to have the right stuff. Same reason why Camry is super hot. You put that in the luxury package, price it well like they did. And then have the electric version too for those who are ready to be done with gas. I think ES is in a very good position. I think they played that like perfectly once again, and we'll see how sales work out. But I think ES is going to be huge for Lexus this year. Michelle agrees about the pricing being great there. I expect it to be more expensive than it is. Glad it isn't crazy expensive. Yeah, I'm very glad too. Man, I really don't want to sound like a Toyota shill. Two should be in here to scold me for my Toyota fanboyism. But I mean, Toyota and Lexus just doing really good stuff recently. I've been super excited about how they've been playing everything for the most part. Sorry, I get my I was actually I got my little notification. Cam sent me his email for member car of the week, so we will have a new member car of the week. Let's check out his car here on Monday morning here, so stay tuned for that, members. And if you want to see and you're not a member yet, feel free to join. Again, there's always that join button. Shameless plug. And Blacked Out 5.0 fan, thanks for stopping by too. And it looks like your comment was retracted, but definitely happy to answer any questions you have here if you want to re-ask or submit a comment there. But Mr. 705 says, I was not cross-shopping the RAV to any Jeep or Ram product. The only other vehicle in consideration was a hybrid CRV, but my last 5 new vehicles were Honda and wanted to change. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, I'm glad you're so happy with it. That's really great to hear. I'm going to be getting some more RAV4s here to cover them. I'm going to be doing any of the variations I can get my hands on here. So over the course of the summer here, I'm going to be doing the GR Sport version and the Woodland as well. And I'm hoping to even get an XLE or something down the road too, just to kind of do one of the lower price point ones. But RAV4 is great, and I've seen them everywhere already. People are really snapping them up quick, and I think for good reason. And Old Chrysler, thanks for stopping by. They said, hey, Matt, good to see you. Nathaniel here. What quality issues does the Cherokee have? So I'll be doing a whole review on it, but it's mostly build quality stuff. So there are lots of panel gaps on the outside. Inside, there's like we were riding in it today, and Beth like had her feet in the passenger footwell, and she like just moved her foot, and the one like panel that covers like wires and stuff behind like under the underdash, that just like dropped down. So she just like put it back up and it's in place again. Like it's not like she was like kicking it or like abusing the car, and it just like she like happened to nudge it and she's like, oh, there it goes. Like even I put it in park the other day, and Chrysler also has a bad history with parking prawls and their the whole runaway issue with those transmissions back in the day. I'm not saying that this is a reprisal of that, but I put it in park, you turn it off, and it went like, and then it like stopped. It's like, don't love that. So I've been like meticulously putting on the parking brake every time I stop because I don't want this thing rolling back. And I can envision if you are in a tight parallel parking spot, for example, you probably would want to put on the parking brake anyway. But just again, something I've never had a car I put in park and it rolls as much as that did afterwards. I mean, sometimes you get a little bit of like, um, a tiny little movement, in park there, but like not like this. It was, so again, I'm hoping these are early things, early teething things I can figure out. Um, and I'm trying to think if there's any other stuff. I think that was the gist of it. Everything else has been pretty solid here. Yeah, and there's a lot I like about it. It's very good. I like the direction they went with it. I've been getting compliments on it this week. And yeah, again, I don't want to rehash the entire review I'm planning here, but pricing is problematic, but they like to lead on discounts and incentives a lot. So yeah, I think that will help it a little bit eventually. But I think actually it's gonna be really cool. Like this one we have is a Laredo, and it's like a mid-grade trim. It's like $41,500, but it's those cloth seats, which I actually am really enjoying. And I think that they are kind of ahead of the trend there. I think the cloth is going to make a comeback. Maybe not in all trims. You're always going to have a leather option, but I think that you'll see more popularity for cloth, I think, as time goes on. Because I think people are kind of just over leather in some cases, and I've heard a lot of people say like, "Ooh, cloth, nice!" Like that. People are actually like liking that, and also for the Cherokee, it's kind of a retro kind of thing, in my opinion. I'm getting a lot of, so I think it's, what is the name of the? Is it the XJ generation, the square-eyed Cherokees? It kind of feels like a modern version of that almost in a way to me. It's super comfy, but just kind of yeah, a little more Jeepy than the last generation, I'd say, if that makes any sense. So there's a lot I like about it. It's just they gotta smooth over the rough edges. It's the same complaints I have with our Cadillac Lyric. Great car, drives great, love it to death. But it just, you have trim falling off, you got, badly aligned things. It's the same kind of problem. So it's not exclusive to this Jeep. Our Cadillac has, similar stuff. It just seems like, I don't know, American cars still, in my experience, are just still, it's weird because so many of these, imports are built in America, but like for some reason, the American brands are the ones that I'm observing at least build quality issues with. And even low cost stuff, like I had a Nissan Kicks that was, very, cheap vehicle, super solid, everything is tight, no issues. I don't see a lot of build quality issues, but when I do see them, unfortunately, it's the American brands that have them still. I mean, like if you watch my review on the Explorer Tremor, I didn't really publicize it a whole lot in that because I truly believe it was just that one that was a Friday car or whatever. But like there was like still bolts laying around in the interior that must have gone somewhere, and and I just saw like there was like exposed, like where carpeting should have like been covering stuff, because you're seeing a lot of exposed mechanical stuff and things that like it was just like it was like the carpet wasn't placed properly or something. It's just like there, I don't know. I've just, unfortunately, it's just the American brands just still have some work to do on the build quality, in my opinion. And I don't like saying that. I don't like observing that, but that's my honest observation. I mean, we still bought the Lyric and stuff, but I just don't have a lot of confidence in build quality for American brands still right now. I don't know if it's a cost cutting thing, if it's a production issue thing, and just not checking the tolerances or the quality control after the vehicle's built, or what the case is. I don't know, but just a lot of stuff that sneaks through that shouldn't sneak through, in my opinion. And also, Linda, thanks so much for being a member for 45 months now. I really appreciate that. She says, except for the Bullet, what is your favorite Mustang? That's tough because that's usually it. I mean, I would have to say though, GT350 is my other favorite Mustang, and the new GT350, because that car is just, it's pure magic between the engine, the transmission, the way it handles. It's just so good. So GT350, hands down, is just phenomenal. The new GT500 is also really good. There's been some other fun ones for sure in the past. Boss 302s are awesome. So all the classic ones, lots of good ones. But GT350 is, to me, and even I'd say it's better than the Bullet. I mean, Bullet is my personal thing that I have my own personal connections to and preferences for. But objectively, as a car reviewer, like the best Mustang they ever made was the GT350, in my opinion. And I don't know if they'll ever outdo that, just because Are they ever going to do a motor like that again? Are they ever going to have it with a manual again? Is it ever going to be that light again? I don't think so. I think GT350s are poised to really be huge money in the future. But I mean, even right now, they've held their value pretty well. And I don't think they're ever going to get cheap because they're just going to be sought after forever because it is a truly special car. It's the motor can be problematic for some people. Thankfully, Jason from Engineering Explained, he just picked up one, and seems like his hasn't burned like any oil whatsoever. So it is possible to get a good one now. Will it last 300,000 miles? I have no idea. I don't know if anyone really cares, but it's just such a good car that you deal with the problematic engine potentially in that anyway, because it's just pure magic. Same thing with Z06, new Z06. It's like, who knows if that engine is going to last long, but man, it's ecstasy every minute that it does last. And I think hopefully they will last decently well. We'll see. Yeah, great question, Linda. Thanks for asking. Thanks for stopping by. Let me see here. Where are we here? Vishal says, in the Sportage, I noticed it tended to stay in EV mode a lot of the time, so I didn't notice the things you're experiencing in the Tucson. Okay, well, I'm glad that, it was able to stay in EV mode so much of the time. I've really been trying to feather my throttle usage in that a little bit because I want to try and stay in EV mode in that as much as I can. But it's interesting. And I think actually Mr. 705 might have mentioned this, but it's really strong with the motor in the RAV4 for the electric stuff now, where that one you can stay in EV mode a lot longer, which I think is part of how they're able to get the higher fuel economy versus the last generation. It's really impressive. So if you have, I know you have the Toyota connections, Vishal. I don't think you said you've driven the new RAV4 yet. Try the new RAV4. I think you'll be pretty impressed. Not like I don't want you to, have any less enjoyment in the Sportage, so maybe you shouldn't. But RAV4 is really good with the EV mode now. It's impressive. And I'm excited to do more time in the plug-in hybrid. But even in my limited experience with it, I mean, even that, is a little bit stronger and really well done now with the extra range in that too. But yeah. But I'm glad you didn't notice it too much. Yeah, as long as you're in electric mode and the Hyundais and the Kias, yeah, you're not going to feel really any of that, waiting around kind of period. So that'll be good. Chad says, at what point can you excuse a Cybertruck used purchase? The prices are falling so fast, they'll be equal to a new Chevy Bolt soon. Well, I mean, yeah, with EVs, I don't know where the bottom is on some of them, especially stuff like Cybertruck. It's just so badly hated. And I don't know if there's really a historical precedent. Like you could say Aztec and others like that, but there wasn't the depth of hatred for Aztec like there is for Cybertruck. With Aztec, it was, it's hideous, but otherwise it's fine. No one hated the GM CEO. He wasn't, going off on racist tirades and stuff, but so I don't think there's ever been a historical precedent for that to base by estimations on when you'll reach rock bottom with values on a Cybertruck. And the other thing to keep an eye on if you are looking for a Cybertruck deal or something, I mean, SpaceX, I think just because they were trying to clear out the extra Cybertruck inventory, SpaceX happened to buy, again, it's all shady math, happened to buy, I don't know how many tens of thousands of Cybertrucks, for official usage or whatever. And those are not going to be in that service forever. Same as, whenever we had the Model 3 values crash hard whenever Hertz dumped their whole inventory of them. I think you'll see that even further crush Cybertruck prices. So yeah, this is one of the big reasons, even again, if you don't care about Elon's stuff, I think the fact that it's just they depreciate so fast and it's so unpredictable is why I can't recommend buying a Tesla. My buddy did it, and I told him, I'm like, look, man, good luck. But he doesn't even care. He's like, he's going to keep it for a long time. He hasn't even checked the value of his Model Y since he bought it. He doesn't really care. So if you're in that mindset, I guess it doesn't matter. Especially if the money doesn't matter too much. But yeah, it's going to be a long, long time before. I think honestly, the thing to wait for with Cybertruck or any of these is the board ever able to get Elon out of Tesla, which I don't know if they even want to. Maybe if he ever gets to a even worse point that would make it something they wouldn't have a choice on or something. But I'd love to see Tesla be able to soar without the Elon baggage. and also just the bad decision making these days with how he's directing the company. But because I think they still have some good potential if they just weren't held back. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, everyone's different, but I know I talked to one guy who had a Cybertruck briefly, who was another, one of these agnostic Elon people that didn't love the guy but didn't hate him either. That had a Cybertruck and then decided to go into a 3 performance instead once the new version of that came out. But he's like, I had, and this was in the height of the real hatred of Cybertruck last year. But he's like, I had people flipping me off at every light, and just people just hated him, while he was in it. And, people usually don't enjoy having a target on their back like that. So I still could not recommend a Cybertruck in any, you know, scenario. And if you're looking for a good used EV deal, even on a truck, I mean, I'd say Silverado EV, Sierra EV, Hummer, EV. I mean, literally any of them. I mean, but Lightnings are a dime a dozen. You can get a dirt cheap F-150 Lightning, EV for, a really good deal. So if your idea is I want an electric truck, I mean, if you like the Cybertruck looks or something, by all means. But, if you're just looking for a cheap electric truck, there's other deals out there, maybe not quite as cheap as Cybertruck, but, I think you can be in a vehicle that people aren't going to hate and you still get the same utility. I'd argue you get a better vehicle. I don't think Cybertruck's that great, honestly. But yeah, so that's that's my latest thoughts on Cybertruck there. So Vishal says, does Hyundai or Kia mess with the tuning of the hybrids at all, or are they the exact same? In our Sportage, at least, it's pretty smooth overall. Maybe Kia messed with the tuning. Possibly. I mean, there's certainly probably a little bit of tuning difference, but all the mechanicals are the same. So you can do a little bit, but you still have just the physical, pressure points there of a turbo that needs to spool, a transmission that needs to figure itself out, and only a 6-speed at that. And so it's a little bit, I don't know. I mean, I think I talked about this in my Sportage review as well. It's certainly not terrible. And if you're not looking for it and it's also very specific instances where it aggravates me. It's fairly rare. It's mostly just like the main time when it bothers me is I'm rolling up to a stop sign, and whether I've come to a full and complete stop or I do a very slow rolling stop kind of thing, like a 1 to 3 mile per hour thing, where that's what really gets caught off guard. But even at a full stop sign from a dead stop, it still is just like waking up and it's like, oh, we're going to try and go electric. And it's like, oh, wait, he's asking for too much throttle. All right, let's figure this out, guys. Okay, we need to kick on the gas engine. Okay, now we need a downshift. Okay, and now we need to get the engine up to enough revs to get the turbo to actually do what it needs to do, because it's only 1.6 liter engine, so it's just, and maybe it's just because I'm a reviewer. It's like people who can't enjoy movies because, they're always thinking about everything that's going on behind the scenes, if you're a movie reviewer. But like, for me, it's just it's knowing all the stuff going on behind the scenes, feeling all that stuff and being able to discern that stuff and pay attention to that stuff. Maybe I'm just overly critical of it. I mean, people drive them very happily, but it just, for me, there's still some work to be done there. But maybe the Kias are a little bit better. It's been, I just need to drive them back to back, honestly, to do a better comparison, which I don't have the luxury of doing, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll have to see next time I get a Kia hybrid if there's any difference there. Let me see. So Chad says, has there been a crash test on a car that has surprised you, good or bad? I mean, there's been some stuff recently that hasn't been great. I was actually surprised. Volvo, the XC60, which was admittedly an old car, this current generation, that in the moderate overlap actually didn't do great. It wasn't terrible. I think it was like an acceptable rating, but it wasn't like good across the board like they usually are. And it was, I think, the same thing with the seatbelts in the back, which just really was surprising for them, that the XC60 didn't do as fantastically well as we were expecting. So I think that was one. Excuse me. I don't think there's been any others that I can think of that were really that much of a shock. I was pleasantly surprised when the Jeep Wrangler finally did well for this most recent round of testing. They've really improved it with the side curtain airbags they put in 25. I think that's probably the the main surprises. I don't think there's any others I can think of. Yeah. It's a good question though. If I think of any others, I'll let you know. But Engrin Shift says, how has the Elantra N1 RP turned out with development of their upcoming engine? I haven't heard any updates from that racing series as far as what's going on with that engine since the initial announcement. I think they just had started. I don't think the racing series is over because it was like over a month and a half or something, I think. But I'm hoping we get some info on that new Elantra N here, maybe like LA Auto Show, maybe, or it might not be till next year still. I think it was the initial, unless that's just production, I don't know. But hopefully we get something, end of this year or early next year, because I would love to see how it's panning out for them. I'm excited for that car. I just really hope they find a way to keep the manual in, but I'm not holding my breath, especially now that GLI lost it. Not optimistic for that segment with manuals, which is a shame. I mean, Civic Si is going to keep it going with the problematic 1.5T. So that's quickly dwindling into a segment that doesn't have a lot of great options if you like manual. It's going to be with WRX, and that'll be it. WRX and SI, right? It'll be the last manuals, I think. Man, that would suck. That ends up being that way. But hey, they got to do what they got to do, I guess. Let me see. So Michelle says, it's surprising Chrysler didn't go luxury. Lincoln and Cadillac are the only American luxury brands. Would have been nice to see Chrysler at that level. I agree. I 100% agree. And I don't know what to do. I mean, this is probably a part of why, what was it? The grandson of Chrysler or something was like trying to buy the company back. And he was really upset with, the way it's going. And I'm sure this doesn't make him happy either, because it's like, okay, now you're just going to make Chrysler be this brand that sells a bunch of cheap stuff. Again, I think they did, in the past successfully with PT Cruiser, but if you're just rebadging Fiats, I don't know, is that going to be great? I'm hoping the airflow is actually impressive and pretty good. So that kind of restores a little bit of prestige for Chrysler. But again, the fact there's no Chrysler 300 planned, for until beyond 2030 and all these other things, it's just, it's a shame. So we'll see how it plays out for them. And then Grid Shift says every company needs a sport/performance and a luxury/performance offering for enthusiasts. I agree. And I'm excited to see the new stuff with the Genesis Magmas coming out. That's going to be awesome. I'm hoping there hasn't been too many updates on that for the States, but I hope that we get the GV60 Magma here soon. It seems like there's no info on GV60 at all, honestly. So I don't know what the status of that whole thing is, but I'm hoping we get that and we get all the other Magma stuff eventually, because that'll be really cool. I'm excited for new Genesis products. It'd be awesome. And Gothmarker says, got in late. What a day in the Continental. 250 miles, effortless, comfort, refinement. Love that car. Today I saw the Jag F-Type again. 3 of the new Nissan Zs. Nice. And Ferrari F90, Aston Martin DB9. Very nice spots. Sounds like you had a nice day there. That's awesome. And rolling in the lap of luxury there in the Continental. Great to hear you're still enjoying that car too. Thanks for stopping by, Goth Rocker. And Angry Shift says, traded in my 22 DCT-N for a 25 manual last March. Got it with 27 miles, and I'm at 10,000 just this past Friday. That's awesome. Well, glad you're enjoying the manual there. That's awesome. And thanks also for sending the jewels there too. I don't know if those ones pop up. I don't know if I saw those ones come in. But hopefully they pop up here eventually. And Chad says, what car from another market do you think would be a huge hit here without tariffs? I think the Fiat Grand Panda would be a good one, because those Pandas sell in huge numbers in Europe. And again, different roads, different buyers, all that kind of stuff. But that's a hugely popular car. And you can't tell me that wouldn't at least have a little bit of success here. So I think that's, solid one. Any of those top sellers that you see in other parts of the world, I think, have a decent potential. Again, could be different for different markets, but I think that's one of the main ones that I wish I would see. I also think some of the smaller things, I still think like Yaris could come back and have some success. I still am sad that Versa has left, because I think that is going to have huge success in Mexico and other places where they're still selling it. I think another huge one is the WRX wagon that's available in Mexico, the Lavorg and Lavorg laybacks that are available in Japan, Australia. I think those I don't know about a huge hit from a regular commercial standpoint, but would certainly improve beyond WRX, I think, with the extra practicality, hopefully. So I think those are the main ones. I mean, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think that those little Volkswagen cheap, EVs, the ID.1 and like the Polo and stuff, maybe it's just my wishful thinking, but like, if I don't know how Bolt will sell, we'll see. Leaf's not doing super great yet with sales, but like if people truly actually want affordable new EVs, I think those could be really fun little things to have. I'd love to see a Polo because there's the Polo GTI. I think all those little things could sell really well. There's probably a few others I'm not thinking of quickly enough here that would be good too. But I think those are the main things. And also just all the other trucks that we can't get, all the mid-sized trucks that we can't get because of the chicken tax. There's the Mitsubishi Triton, Volkswagen has the Amarok. There's like even like Mercedes has trucks. There's all these trucks, and we're a big truck place. So like if they could just sell all those over here, they'd be huge. And obviously the EVs, all the Chinese EVs, if those weren't kept out, I think there's a growing support and a growing demand for the Chinese EVs. And if they were able to come in without tariffs, I mean, yeah, it'd be game over. It'd be completely game over. Some of the others could be, playing catch up and maybe do okay, like Ford. And I think GM has a pretty good spot with Cadillac, especially for the EVs and also, the Chevys. So I think GM and Ford would be okay, but man, everyone else would be hurting because the Chinese stuff is just so far advanced. And so, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that would be poised to be a huge mass market hit if they weren't tariffed. And Fazlin, thanks for stopping by too. And Lancelot says, Matt, did you ever find the high voltage battery cutoff in the back? For which one were we talking about with that? I remember us talking about that, but I can't remember which vehicle that was. That had the high voltage cut off in the back. Was it the Lyric? I don't know. I have to, yeah, but you have to jog my memory on that because it's been a little while and I don't recall which vehicle that was, unfortunately. So the answer is no. I did not find that, but yeah, I have to look at whatever that was because I lost. I remember we talked about that, but I can't remember which model. Antonio says, do you know what happened to the future Chrysler 300 2028 or 2029? Are they going to make it or not? They're not going to make it. No, they already announced their plans for Chrysler until through 2030. No 300. So yes, there is no 300 planned, and it's a huge miss to not do that, in my opinion. So yeah, no luck there. If you want something that's a big Mopar sedan, you got to go for a new Charger, which is a great car and it's very comfy. Just doesn't have that prestige or that much luxury, but still has all the main nice features. Very comfy, great for long drives. I did lots of driving in them already. They're really good. Just yeah, fortunately nothing from Chrysler, sadly. I see Linda also says she prefers cloth. Getting back to that earlier discussion, that's great. Yeah, I think a lot of people really do. It's even though we've had some hot days here, I don't miss on having ventilated seats because these seats breathe so much. My back's not getting hot. It's great. I'm having a real awakening in my own self to be like, man, why are we not doing more cloth seats? This is great. So you'll hear plenty of compliments about that in my Jeep review. But Goth Rocker says, any updates on Mazda Inline 6 all-wheel drive sedan? No updates. No, I haven't heard anything about that recently or even any rumors. So, I'm guessing that maybe that'll come eventually, but I think, they were just in a wait and see pattern as far as sedan sales for other brands and stuff. And, that's when I talked to, some of the executives at Mazda, even a couple years ago when CX-90 debuted, they said, tell people to buy more sedans. I think people have since then bought more sedans. Whether it's enough to convince them or not, I don't know. but I haven't heard anything new, unfortunately. And also, Goth Walker says, friend bought a new Mitsubishi Outlander, great value, 10-year warranty, made in Japan, quiet, great fit and finish, comfy, laminated glass. Then the Yamaha sound system is the best. I was shocked. They are really, really good. I hope your friend got a good discount because MSRP is whack on those. It's just terrible. And that's what I have to judge, in my reviews. And so it's hard to recommend at MSRP. But yeah, Mitsubishi definitely is generous with discounts, so I'm sure he got a nice discount on it. But yeah, I mean, if you can get $5,000 or more off, it starts to make some sense. But it's so high otherwise. I mean, it's very nice. It's the only one that has a third row now. It's the only one that offers a massage, and I think Tiguan now does too. But I was very impressed that Yamaha stereo is fantastic. I reviewed the 25 Outlander with all those changes. Really liked it. 10-year warranty is great too. A lot of good stuff about it. And that's why it's the only thing keeping that company afloat over here, because it is really good and they do sell a decent amount of them. And it's worth considering for sure. And I'm glad they're doing the revised plug-in hybrid version here now. I hope it also gets the e-power system that Nissan has, here in the next couple of years. I think that would help to, give it some more life there and bring in a regular hybrid for Outlander too. Let me see. Mr. 705 says, I really wish I could have got the plug-in RAV, but I was just out of budget. Yeah, totally get it. And, the hybrid is still going to be, great. Like you said, it's so much in that electric mode anyway. But always a goal for the future, if you ever want to trade up someday. At least the good news is, the RAV4s hold their value pretty well. So hopefully you'll have some equity pretty quickly and, maybe you can move up in the future if it makes sense. And Michelle says, I'd love to try a RAV4. My parents did drive a new RAV4 and liked it a lot. It was just too expensive, which is why we didn't go for it. Yeah, Sportage, we got the 0.99 APR for 60 months plus the nicer interior. Yeah, and you bought it a good time too, because I don't know if you guys have seen, at least around here, interest rates have gone up already. And now there's talk of the Fed raising interest rates too. So, and this is why I even, a couple of weeks ago, someone asked, should you wait to buy a car? Is this a good time to buy a car? And I was like, if I'm going to buy a car, if you need to buy a car this year and you need to buy a car, yeah, I would do it sooner rather than later, because I think we're going to have, more shortages here from the domino effect of these straight closures and everything else. And they actually, some of the car companies have warned about this. And it could even get worse depending on how the negotiations go here for the North American Trade Agreement, which I believe the new deal needs to be in by September, I think, maybe even sooner. But if they end up doing something, dumb there with that, they are saying that could instantly raise prices thousands as well from that, plus inflation, plus, part shortages and everything else. It's going to be, there's still going to be a lot more to come here with that stuff that we haven't felt yet, because the supply chain is such a long thing before you start to feel those effects. But yeah, I would say you made the right move there with going for the Sportage when you guys did, and going for something fits your budget is always the right move, for sure. And Golf Marcus has also enjoyed the new Outback Wilderness review, but it is ugly. The front end is just a mess, makes no sense. Otherwise, Super did a good job. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have all the same feelings there. Not a good look, but it's really good otherwise. Yeah, but it's funny though, this is why I always say it's subjective, and I don't act like my opinion is the only one, because a bunch of people in the comments they're saying, I think it looks great. And I'm glad someone likes it, and it seems like a decent amount of people actually do. So hopefully it doesn't hurt the sales of that vehicle, and it keeps on doing well for Subaru and helps to finance hopefully some of the fun stuff for them in the future. We'll see. And WK Beats says, what's a worse duo, Elon and his Cybertruck or Walter White and his Aztec? Definitely Elon. Walter White, yeah, I actually haven't seen all of Breaking Bad. There's been twice where I've tried to, and we watched like the first episode or two and just didn't see it through. I know it's super good, and that's me being crazy with having that blind spot. But my understanding of Walter White, a problematic person, but much smaller impact as far as what he would do. even if he was a real person, compared to the massive, domino effect that everything Elon does has. And yeah, that's definitely the worst combo for sure. And Quiet Meadow says, I think Cybertruck looks cool. Sad there's so many haters. Yeah, well, that's another example, just like the Outback Wilderness there. For certain people, it looks great. My daughter loves it, but she's 5. I think a lot of 5-year-olds like something that looks like it's drawn by a 5-year-old, in my opinion. But no, I mean, yeah, everyone likes different things, and that's fine. I think it's not only the looks that have the haters for the Cybertruck, it's just what Cybertruck embodied, again, when it came out, when it started to really take off, well, not really take off because it never really did sales wise, but it kind of was launching right around when Elon was really souring in the public perception. And also, I think it's not just a Cybertruck problem, but I think there is, a growing cultural like stereotype of just aggressive truck drivers and the stereotypes that they kind of fall into. Again, some may be warranted, maybe some unwarranted. I know there's plenty of level-headed, nice people that drive lifted trucks, and so I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but I think that Cybertruck also kind of just, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, because I don't really care how it does, but like, I think with that, it kind of already started off on a bad foot because it had this super overboard, aggressive kind of look to it, that I think just is this toxic masculinity thing that people are really being repelled by recently. And I think that, that kind of thing just is embodied in the Cybertruck, and part of why people hate it, in addition to the styling, in addition to Elon. It's just like other stuff that it's Cybertruck's an easy target instead of complaining about every lifted F-150 or whatever. It's like that embodies all of that stuff in one convenient package. And TW says, I remember seeing the first gen Chrysler 300 for the first time and thought they looked cool. Yeah, I know, me too. I remember it was like, man, like Bentley was going to be sending lawsuits because it was this like Bentley looking thing for Chrysler money. That was one of the brilliant parts of that. And you think that they would have learned, a valuable lesson there that I think still holds true to this day. Like, expensive looking stuff sells really well. I think this is part of the secret Genesis sauce right now. Genesis makes stuff that truly looks like Bentleys in many people's eyes. And especially GV80. I mean, GV80 was like, so expensive looking and feeling. It actually was a convincing like Bentley knockoff, honestly. And I think that's part of why Genesis sells so well, is because of the styling and how expensive it looks. And it's just weird that Chrysler had that and then they just give it away, and let someone else take off and grow their own luxury brand instead. And this is one of the reasons why I love Genesis and all these up and coming brands. They're doing the obvious things. They're the ones that are hungry and just making a lot of the right moves, I think. And Goth Parker says Lincoln needs to have a large, comfy, stylish sedan again. It is a luxury brand, tired of all the SUVs. Chrysler should also have an A300 sedan. Yeah. And I agree about Lincoln. Yeah, it'd be great to see Lincoln do something. It sounds like Jim Farley's now open to sedans again. So I'm hoping, especially, I think they have some good bones if they actually bring this 4-door Mustang V8 thing to market. I think that could be a cool platform for some kind of Lincoln LS revival. I mean, that's just me spitballing. I don't know anything, but like if I was running the show at, Ford or Lincoln or, both, I'd be like, look, we got this thing with the Mustang. Lincoln LS was a cool thing. And I think it was really actually quite a turning point for Lincoln brand perception, from the old stuff to like, hey, we're this new, more modern brand now and stuff. I think that doing a new Lincoln LS would be really cool with the Mustang stuff, but who knows? Ford's another one of those brands you can't count on them to do anything that makes sense. so we'll see what happens. But Michelle has agreed we need more sedans on the market. Mazda, make the rear-wheel drive inline six, you cowards. Yeah, I mean, if anyone's crazy enough to take a flyer on that, it's Mazda. Because I mean, what justification did they have in a world of downsizing and electrification to put out a brand new inline six and a rear-wheel drive based platform like that, and a small company that can't afford to do it probably, and somehow has found a way. So if anyone was crazy enough and I could throw the rational business side of things to the wayside, it would be, yeah, the Mazda would be the one to do it. So maybe they will. We'll see. There's been the rumors in the past about them working with Lexus and there'll be a new IS as a result. I don't know if that's, anything legit or not, but I don't care what it takes. If you need to do a partnership, do a partnership. But I think it'd be great to see a new Mazda sedan for sure. And Fazlin says, random question, what's the longest road trip you've ever been on? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think the longest I've ever driven really a car, it's probably like 650 miles or so, 700 miles. I mean, when I do my trips in one day, I go to Philly and back every once in a while. That's probably the longest, but I've never like had multi-day leg road trips. I've always wanted to drive cross country, but every road trip that I've always done has always been a one-day drive, at least to get to the place. So all the beaches I've gone to have always been, one-day drive. Any of the other vacation spots, and like anyone else for the most part, it's like you get to a certain point, and if it gets super long, unless you're doing it specifically for the road trip value, like, once you get to a certain distance, you just hop on a plane. So that's, especially now with all the freaking flyer miles that I rack up, that's usually the way that we go here too. But yeah, I'd say, yeah, as far as driving time on the road, I'd say, yeah, probably about 11 to 12 hours is probably the longest I've driven in a stint, which is nothing, I know. Maybe it's been a few days, but I think that's about it. One of the longest drives, there's one time in college where when I was hanging with all the exotic car guys back in the day, I drove up, I think, okay, so I drove up to Pittsburgh the night before from Virginia Tech, where I was at the time. So that was like 5 hours the night before. Woke up in Pittsburgh, went to Columbus for a car show there. So drove out to Columbus, drove back, which right there already, I mean, we were making good time, and I wasn't driving, so this was just being in the car for the road trip. We were making pretty good time in the supercars, but and typically that's like a 3.5 hour drive to Columbus and then 3.5 hours back. So that was already probably 7. And then that day, then I had to hop in my car and I had to get back to Virginia Tech that night. So I think I got home or got to Virginia Tech back in my dorm at like 2 or 3 in the morning. That was probably the longest day on the road I've ever had. Because between the Columbus round trip and then going 5.5 hours to Virginia Tech, that was would that end up being 6 plus 6? So 12 hours still. That's probably about the record for me. I desperately want to do a cross country road trip someday though. And I see also we're a little bit over time here, but I see we've kind of caught up to the comments here, so not too much more to go, and we can wrap it up here. So let me see. Mr. 705 saying farewell here. And Xenia, thanks for stopping by. And Fook says, do you have any updates about the Slate EV truck? None, other than I think they said June 24th is when we're going to get pricing and when pre-orders open. And then they said the end of this year is when they're going to start shipping the first truck. So that's the only updates we have, but we'll get final pricing here in a couple of weeks, thankfully. Decepticon, thanks for stopping by here at the end. Hope you're doing well too. And Goth Walker says, friend got $7,000 off the Outlander. Okay, well that makes sense then. If you can get $7,000 off of one, yes, that makes it a good value for sure. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that they're able to get a nice discount. That's awesome. And Michelle says, I don't think the new Outback is ugly, but it definitely isn't great looking either. I'm somewhere in the middle, but the one you reviewed, that color combo is how I'd get one if I were buying. The green is nice. It's a nice metallic green, and I'm glad to see them doing a nice green there. And Midnight says, should I sell my 23 Elantra N with only 8,400 miles to get an electric car, or wait it out until gas prices come down? I could get about 85% of what I paid for it right now. Well, that's going to come down to your financial situation and, how much you drive. I mean, clearly it doesn't sound like you're driving that much. If you have a 23 and you only have 8,400 miles on it, But again, if it comes down to what your financial situation is. If whatever amount you're paying for Phillips is really putting you in a bind, it also comes down to what your interest rate was back then. You might have gotten a really good interest rate at that point in time. So you have to factor that in. If you're going to get a new car, you're going to be paying more in interest. So all these things, even if the pricing is an even trade, if you have a higher interest rate, or maybe you're paying cash, in that case, that's a wash. But, I think the thing with gas, it's going to take a while to come back down. And it's so hard to tell as far as politics. That's another area where you just can't have any rational thoughts anymore because, it's a very unpredictable climate of politics, to put it mildly. So, it's really hard to say. I'd like to think that, we can resolve things, and then gas will come down slowly, but it will come down, and I say hopefully by early next year, things could get to a reasonable price point again. Can you endure high gas prices until then, or not? And it also comes down to, what electric cars you're looking at, how much appeal there is for those, and all that. So there's a lot of still, different variables. But yeah, I would say, if you're in the market for a car already, then it makes sense probably to go electric if it fits your lifestyle. But if you are in a current car, especially those aren't that, if you were in a Suburban or something, I'd, understand the rush to jump out of it. But Elantra, and you're hopefully getting decent fuel economy. You're not driving it a ton probably with the miles you have on it there. I would probably just say stick with it if you really love it. Now, if you don't like it, just, you can get rid of it because you don't like it. But if it's just about gas prices and everything else you love, because for you, I'd say the alternative would be go Ioniq 5N. But, one, there's the ICCU issue, which I can't recommend those cars for because they can fail at any point and leave you stranded. And then also, even a cheap Ioniq 5N is still 40 or 38 grand at the cheapest. That's going to be way more than an Elantra N probably, So I think you're probably better off just staying where you are. If you want to downgrade, you want to go to something that's cheaper and save some money, then I could see there being a case made. Again, it just comes down to your finances, honestly. And Lance says, "What's an Elon Musk? Some sort of clone?" Yeah, I don't think I've actually ever heard that one before. That's one that really sets itself up. So I'm surprised. No one's ever done a cologne joke for Elon, but I don't think I've ever heard that one before. But Chad says, thanks for doing the chats. Thanks so much for joining the chats here. And Linda says husband is a Virginia Tech graduate. That's awesome. Well, hokey hi to him. And I desperately want to get back. I was just talking to my brother-in-law yesterday about how I really want to come back down for a game sometime. It's just, again, time and money, two things I don't have right now to just spend freely. So not able to get down there anytime soon, but I'm hoping to someday, because I want to show my daughter around and just go back for my own personal enjoyment because I miss it. It was really a great time. But hopefully you guys have had some fun times going back since. And Braden, thanks for stopping by. Says, I saw a GRGT Saturday and it's a stunner in person. Wow. Did you go maybe to the Peterson? That was the debut of it, right? That's awesome. He says the best looking car under 500 grand, in my opinion. That's really cool. I'm excited to see it in person someday, hopefully. It looks great in pictures even, but I'm sure in person, in 3 dimensions, it probably is so low and crazy. I'm glad you got to see it though, and I'm glad it looked good. I'm happy to hear that. Anyway, Goth Rocker says good night too. And Midnight says, thanks, Matt. I love the car. I just paid it off. I don't drive it much, but I anticipate I will need to drive a car more soon. I'd like to test drive the Ioniq 5N, but was also looking at the Bolt. Bolt's a fine commuter vehicle. Again, if you're not going to miss the sporty component, that could be good. Another one I could even say is, Ioniq 6 also, again, has that same ICCU issue, but even a regular Ioniq 6, you're still at 320 horsepower. You might actually enjoy that same kind of dimensions to Elantra, pretty similar, but so much more space inside. I would just look into the ICCU issue, see how you feel about it. There's tons of people driving around without issues in their Hyundais and Kia, EVs. So It's not super widespread, but it is a thing, just to make you aware of. But Inex 6, you can get one of those for like 20 grand or so now, for like still one with reasonable miles and in good condition and stuff. So I'd probably rather go something like that. Bolt's fine, but it's just not the best driving experience. And if again you've been spoiled with a Launcher N, I'd say maybe check out like the Inex 6 or something instead. And again, depending on how you feel about Tesla, I think a Model 3 Performance could kind of make it feel like less of a compromise. You still have something really fun and faster than even a Launcher N, but the same kind of size. They're cheap once again, save you a bunch of money, if that's the goal there. And still kind of keep with something similar to what you like. So just spitballing that. If you want to chat more too, I do also do one-on-one car consulting things. I know you're trying to save money, so having a video call that is something I charge for is probably not ideal, but feel free to also send me an email or something if there's something you want to chat about a little bit more. But yeah, that's probably my best recommendations. I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff out there in the EV world. So many great used EVs. So just comes down to what you're looking for. I mean, even like you can get a Mach-E GT. I don't know how you feel about crossovers, but like a Mach-E GT, which actually is front wheel drive bias, feels kind of like a hot hatch, honestly. Those are still like 25 to 30 grand. Can save you a bunch of money on the gas there, and it's still really fun, really fast. Great cars too. So that could be another one to consider too. But anyway, yeah. Thank you all so much for joining in here. Right at 2 hours and 20 minutes here for this one. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, thanks so much for the great chat, all the great support here tonight as well. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the next one. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for some more fun here, and a great month of car reviews lined up as well. So members, stay tuned for all those member posts here tomorrow, the member car of the week from Cam, and also the member schedule here as well. But thank you all so much. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care and have a great week.